My sister and her husband left for a cruise vacation, asking me to look after my nephew, an 8-year-old child who had not spoken a single word since the day he was born. The instant the front door shut behind them, the boy went still, met my gaze directly, and spoke in a flawless, clear voice. "Aunt Megan, please, you cannot drink the tea Mom made. She planned this." Ice flooded my veins. Everything I thought I knew came crashing down. I had once been a soldier, 2 tours in Iraq. I thought I knew what fear felt like: roadside bombs, midnight ambushes, watching friends die in the dirt. I was wrong. True terror sounds like an 8-year-old boy breaking 8 years of silence to tell you someone is trying to end your life. I need to know I am not alone in this. Drop a comment with where you are watching from, your city, your country, because in the next few minutes, you will understand why I am sharing this story with the world, no matter where you are. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about family, betrayal, and survival. Let me take you back to that Thursday morning in October. The morning everything began to unravel. Rachel and Daniel pulled into my driveway just after 9, their black SUV gleaming in the autumn sun. I stood on the porch of my house on Pecan Grove Lane, coffee in hand, watching them arrive. Austin had that crisp fall feeling, leaves just starting to turn gold and orange along the street. Rachel stepped out first. My sister, 38 years old, hair perfectly styled, designer sunglasses perched on her head. She looked like she had walked out of a magazine. I had raised her since she was 3 years old. After our parents died in a car accident when I was 18 and she was just a little girl, I gave up my college scholarship, joined the Army for the signing bonus and steady pay, and spent the next 25 years making sure she had everything she needed: education, stability, a normal life. I sacrificed my own future so she could have hers. Daniel followed her out of the car, her husband of 10 years, 42, tall, expensive suit even on a casual Thursday. He worked in real estate, always talking about investments and opportunities and the next big deal. His smile was white and wide and never quite reached his eyes. I had never fully trusted him, but Rachel loved him, and that had been enough for me. "We are so grateful you can do this, Megan," Rachel said, walking up to embrace me. The hug was brief, perfunctory. "Our 10th anniversary cruise, 4 days in the Caribbean. We have been planning this forever." "Happy to help," I said. "Where is Evan?" Daniel was already pulling luggage from the trunk. The boy climbed out of the back seat slowly, clutching a worn teddy bear he had carried everywhere since he was 2. Evan, 8 years old, small for his age, with curly brown hair and deep blue eyes that seemed to hold secrets no child should carry. He did not smile when he saw me. He never smiled. He did not wave or make any sound of greeting. He never did. The doctors called him nonverbal, possibly a developmental condition, they said. Might never speak. We had taken him to specialists, therapists, everyone we could find. Nothing wrong with his hearing, nothing wrong with his vocal cords. The experts shrugged and suggested it might be psychological, might be neurological, might be something no one could explain. Rachel always refused further treatment. "He is fine," she would say. "We have accepted it." I watched Evan walk toward the house, and something strange happened. He stopped at the threshold of my front door. His eyes swept across the room, not like a child looking at familiar surroundings, but like someone assessing a space, calculating. For just a moment his gaze met mine, and I saw something flicker behind those blue eyes. Something alert. Something knowing. Something that should not exist in a child who supposedly understood nothing. Then the moment passed. He was just Evan again, silent, distant, unreachable. I shook off the feeling, just my imagination. Inside the kitchen, Rachel placed a wooden box on my counter. The smell of dried herbs wafted up when she opened the lid. "I made you something special," she said. "A herbal tea blend. Chamomile, valerian, lavender. It helps with sleep." I did not remember mentioning any trouble sleeping, but I nodded politely. Rachel began arranging the contents. Individual packets, neatly labeled, enough for 8 days, though they would only be gone for 4. She lined them up with careful precision, almost obsessive attention. "It is very important you drink this twice a day," she said. "Morning and evening. At your age, consistency matters for your health." I was 45, not 85. The comment felt strange, but I let it go. Daniel stood in the kitchen doorway, and I noticed his eyes were not on me. They were on the tea box. Something flickered across his face. Anticipation? Anxiety? Before I could analyze it, he looked away and checked his watch. "We should go," he said. "Flight to the cruise port leaves in 3 hours." Rachel turned to Evan, who stood motionless near the refrigerator. Her voice went cold, flat, devoid of any maternal warmth. "Remember what we talked about, Evan. Be good." Evan did not react, but I saw his small hand tighten around the teddy bear. I had seen Rachel speak to her son hundreds of times, and it always struck me the same way. She addressed him like an object, a piece of furniture that occasionally needed acknowledging. Not like a child, not like her child. Something in my gut twisted. That old instinct from Iraq, the sixth sense that had kept me alive through 2 deployments. Danger nearby, something wrong. But this was my sister. This was family. I pushed the feeling down. The goodbyes were quick. Daniel did not say a word to Evan, did not hug him, did not even look at him. Rachel gave her son an air kiss from 3 feet away, then turned to me. "Take care of yourself, sis." She paused, her eyes traveling over me from head to toe. "You have been looking tired lately." Something in her gaze made my skin prickle, like she was assessing me, measuring me for something. Then she was gone, walking to the SUV without looking back. I stood on the porch with Evan, his small hand in mine, and watched the black vehicle disappear down Pecan Grove Lane. The October air was cool, leaves rustled in the breeze. It should have been peaceful. It was not. The moment the SUV turned the corner, Evan's grip on my hand changed. His fingers clamped down on my wrist with surprising strength, urgent, desperate. I looked down. His teddy bear had fallen to the porch floor. Abandoned. That bear had not left his hands in 6 years. His other hand pointed toward the kitchen, toward the box of tea. His whole body was shaking. "Evan?" I knelt down to his level. "What is wrong, buddy?" His mouth opened, closed, opened again. His eyes were wide, filled with something I had never seen in them before. Fear, yes, but also determination, urgency, like a dam about to break after holding back a flood for years. Then he spoke. The voice was rough, unpracticed, a machine that had not run in years, finally turning over. But the words were clear, crystal clear. "Aunt Megan." I stopped breathing. "Do not drink the tea." The world tilted sideways. Mom put something bad in it. She planned this. My knees nearly buckled. I grabbed his shoulders to steady myself, or maybe to confirm he was real, that this was real. "Evan," I managed to whisper, "did you just speak?" His small hands grabbed my shirt, bunching the fabric in his fists. The terror on his face was adult in its intensity. "Please, Aunt Megan." His voice cracked. "Please do not drink it. Promise me." I stared at this child, this boy who had not uttered a single word in 8 years. Not mama, not Dada. Not help or hungry or scared, nothing. For 8 years, silence. And now, the moment his parents left, he had spoken. Not baby talk, not confused syllables, complete sentences, clear warnings. I pulled him into my arms, holding him tight against my chest. I could feel his heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. "Okay," I said, my voice shaking. "Okay, Evan, I will not drink it, I promise." He sagged against me with relief, but only for a moment. Then he pulled back, and his eyes met mine again. Those blue eyes that I had always thought were empty now burned with intelligence, with knowledge, with secrets. "There is more you do not know about Mom," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do you mean?" He glanced toward the kitchen where the tea sat waiting. Then back to me. "She is not who you think she is." My 8-year-old nephew, who had not spoken a single word since the day he was born, had just saved my life. and I had no idea how much more he was about to tell me. I guided Evan into the kitchen, my hands still trembling from what I had just witnessed. The boy who had been silent his entire life had spoken. Not babbled, not stammered, spoken clearly, with purpose, with urgency. My mind could not process it. 8 years of specialists telling us he might never talk. 8 years of Rachel insisting he was fine the way he was. 8 years of silence, shattered in seconds. I pulled out a chair at the kitchen table. "Sit down, buddy." I poured us both glasses of water. "Not tea. Never tea again. I need you to tell me everything. Start from the beginning." Evan climbed into the chair, his small frame looking even smaller against the wooden back. But his eyes were different now. Alert. Present. The vacant stare I had grown accustomed to was gone, replaced by something sharp and knowing. His voice was still rough, like an engine that had not turned over in years. But the words came steady and clear. "I was 3 years old," he said, looking down at his hands. "I remember everything. Most people do not remember anything from that age." I kept my voice level, though my heart was pounding. "I remember because that was the day I learned to be afraid." He looked up at me, and in that moment, I did not see an 8-year-old boy. I saw someone much older, someone who had carried a terrible weight for far too long. "Tell me," I said softly. Evan took a breath. "There was a party at our house. Dad's work friends. Everyone dressed nice. Lots of talking, lots of laughing. I was playing with my toys in the living room. I could picture it. Rachel and Daniel's house in the suburbs. The kind of party Daniel loved to throw, impressing clients, networking, climbing. Dad was talking to some men in suits," Evan continued. "Showing off, I think. And I saw him across the room and I got excited. I ran over and I said one word." "What word?" "Daddy." My breath caught. Just that one word. Daddy. I was happy to see him. The other men laughed and said I was cute. They patted my head. Evan's hands twisted together on the table. But Dad did not laugh. He smiled at the men, but when he looked at me, his eyes were different. Cold. I did not understand then. I was only 3. "What happened after the party?" Evan went quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice had dropped to barely above a whisper. "That night. After everyone left. After Mom was downstairs cleaning up. He closed his eyes and I watched him travel back in time to a memory no child should have to carry. I was in my room, in my bed. The nightlight was on, the one shaped like a moon. I remember because I was looking at it when the door opened. I wanted to reach across the table and hold him, but I sensed he needed to tell this without interruption. He needed to finally speak the words he had held inside for 5 years. Dad came in. He closed the door behind him, then he locked it. My hands clenched into fists beneath the table. He walked over to my bed, sat down on the edge. He did not look angry. That was the scary part. He looked calm, quiet, like he was about to tell me a bedtime story. Evan opened his eyes, staring at some point in the middle distance. He said, "You spoke today, Evan. That was a mistake." I could hear Daniel's voice in my head, that smooth, reasonable tone he used when he was being his most manipulative. "I did not understand," Evan continued. "I was 3. I did not know what a mistake meant. Not really." What else did he say? He said, "Do you know what happens to children who speak when they should not?" The room felt colder. The afternoon sun streaming through the windows did nothing to warm it. He told me there was a special hospital, a place for broken children. He said they take you away in the middle of the night and you never come back. He said Mommy would not save me. He said you would not find me. He said I would be alone forever, in the dark, with no one, 3 years old, threatened with abandonment, with disappearance, with a fate designed to terrify a toddler into silence. Then he said the rule. Evan's voice hardened, aged beyond his years. "From now on you do not speak, not one word, not to anyone, ever. If you speak I will know, and I will send you to that hospital." I could not stay silent any longer. Evan, I am so sorry. I had no idea. He was not finished. He stood up, walked to the door, opened it. Then he looked back at me and said, "Good boy." Now, not a sound. And he left. Like nothing happened. The horror of it washed over me. A 3-year-old child, terrorized into silence by his own father. Believing every word because what does a toddler know about lies? I stopped talking that night, Evan said. I have not said a word out loud since. Until today. 5 years. 5 years of silence because a grown man threatened a baby. Rage burned in my chest, hot and fierce. But I had to ask the question I dreaded. What about your mother? Did she know? Evan's eyes met mine. The answer was there before he spoke. Mom knew. She was there. My heart cracked. A couple days after Dad warned me, I was playing in my room. By myself. And I made a sound, a little laugh. I did not mean to. It just came out. What happened? Mom heard. She came to my room, knelt down in front of me. I braced myself. Her voice was sweet. That is what I remember. Sweet like honey. But her eyes were cold, just like Dad's. What did she say? She said, "Daddy told you the rules, did he not? Good boys do not make sounds. Good boys are quiet." Rachel, my sister, the girl I had raised, the woman I had sacrificed everything for. She had looked at her 3-year-old son and reinforced the terror her husband had planted. Then she said, "If you are not a good boy, we cannot keep you anymore. You do not want to go to the hospital, do you?" I felt sick, physically ill. Rachel had not just failed to protect her son. She had participated in his psychological torture. She had normalized the silence, made it a condition of love. A 3-year-old cannot tell the difference between a rule and a death sentence. To Evan, being quiet meant survival. Speaking meant disappearing forever. I wanted to drive to the cruise port, pull Rachel off that ship, demand to know why. How could she do this to her own child? But Evan needed me here. Evan needed me calm. "How did you survive?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the fury building in my chest. 8 years without speaking. "How did you cope?" Evan's expression shifted. Something almost like pride flickered across his face. I could not speak, but I could listen. I could watch. I could learn. "What do you mean?" "People think because I do not talk, I do not understand. But I understand everything. I hear everything." He leaned forward slightly. "When adults are around me, they forget I am there. They talk about things they would never say in front of a normal kid. Secrets, plans, arguments, phone calls." I stared at him. This boy had been invisible, a ghost in his own home, and he had used that invisibility to become something else entirely. "I taught myself to read when I was 4, he said, "from the captions on TV, from your books when you would leave them out during our visits. 4 years old, teaching himself to read while everyone around him assumed he was mentally impaired. By 6, I was reading at a high school level. By 7, I understood legal documents." "Legal documents?" He nodded. "Mom leaves things out sometimes, papers on her desk, her laptop open. She does not think I can understand any of it, but you can." "I understand everything, Aunt Megan. I have been watching and listening and learning for 5 years. Everyone thinks I am broken, that I am empty." He looked at me with those ancient eyes. "I am not broken. I was never broken. I was just waiting." Waiting for what? For the right moment. For someone who would believe me. For someone who could fight back. My throat tightened. This child had been alone with his knowledge for years, carrying secrets too heavy for adult shoulders, let alone a child's. 6 months ago, Evan said, something changed. What happened? I could not sleep. I went downstairs to get water. It was late, maybe midnight. I heard voices from Dad's office. My pulse quickened. Mom and Dad were talking. Quiet, but I could hear through the door. What were they saying? Your name, over and over, and words like medicine and confused and inheritance. Inheritance, my house, my savings, everything I had built over 25 years of military service. Then I heard Mom say something that made me freeze. "What?" she said. "By Christmas, she will not remember her own name. By spring, she will be in a facility, and everything she owns will be ours." The room spun. 6 months. They had been planning this for at least 6 months, maybe longer. "That is when I knew," Evan said. "I knew they were hurting you. I knew I had to do something. But you could not speak." "No. If I spoke, Dad would send me away. No one would believe a mute kid anyway. So I did the only thing I could." "What did you do?" "I started collecting evidence." I stared at him. Papers Mom left out, screenshots from her computer when she forgot to close it, receipts from the trash. "You went through the garbage?" "Every week, after they took it out, before the truck came, looking for anything that might prove what they were doing." An 8-year-old boy digging through trash to save his aunt's life, while his parents planned murder in the next room. "I have been saving everything," Evan said, "hiding it where they would never look, waiting for the chance to tell someone." "Why now?" "Why today? Because this is the first time we have been alone. Really alone, without them watching, without Dad checking on me, without Mom listening at doors. 4 days. They had given us 4 days. And because the tea," Evan added. "The new tea Mom made. I saw her putting things in it, crushing pills, mixing them in. I knew if you drank it, you might not wake up." My blood ran cold. That tea on my counter was not a gift. It was a weapon. Evan stood up from the table. His small frame seemed to grow larger somehow. More solid, more certain. "I did not just listen, Aunt Megan. I collected proof. Papers, screenshots, receipts, everything they have been planning." He held out his hand to me. I hid it where they would never think to look. "Where?" "Here. In this house. In my room." I took his hand and stood. "Do you want to see it?" "Yes." Evan's grip was firm, steady, the grip of someone who had been carrying a burden alone for too long and was finally ready to share it. "I have been saving it for someone who would believe me," he said. "Someone who could fight back." His eyes locked onto mine. "You were a soldier, Aunt Megan. Now I need you to be one again." Evan did not wait for me to answer his question. He was already moving, his small hand pulling me out of the kitchen and toward the stairs. The boy who had been silent for 8 years now moved with purpose, with urgency, with the determination of someone who had waited far too long for this moment. We passed through the living room, and my eyes caught the family photos on the wall. Rachel in her wedding dress, radiant and smiling. Daniel with his arm around her, that perfect white smile on display. Evan as a baby, held by his mother, his blue eyes already holding that distant, unreachable look I had mistaken for emptiness. I had walked past these photos 1,000 times and never seen what was really there. A family built on lies. A child trapped in plain sight. I had built this house with my own hands and military salary. 15 years ago, I bought the land on Pecan Grove Lane with my combat pay and signing bonuses. Every board, every nail, every coat of paint represented years of sacrifice, years of deployments, years of missing holidays and birthdays, and ordinary life so that I could build something permanent, something that would last. And Rachel wanted to take it from me. Rachel, who I had raised from a toddler. Rachel, who I had fed and clothed and protected. Rachel, who I had given everything. My jaw tightened as we climbed the stairs. The wooden steps creaked beneath our feet, the same steps I had installed myself all those years ago. I never imagined I would be climbing them to view evidence of my own attempted murder. Evan's room was at the end of the hallway. It was not his primary bedroom, just the space he used when he stayed with me during visits. Rachel always seemed eager to send him over, at least once a month, sometimes more. "He is so much calmer at your place, Megan," she would say. Now I understood. She wanted him out of the way so she could plan without a witness. She forgot that her silent son saw everything. The room was simple. A twin bed with a navy blue comforter I had picked out because I thought boys liked blue. A small bookshelf filled with children's books that Evan supposedly could not read. A wooden toy box in the corner, a birthday gift from me when he turned 5. Dinosaur wallpaper on one wall, cheerful and bright. A room designed to welcome a child who could not communicate. Except that child could communicate. He had simply chosen not to. Or been forced not to. Evan walked past the bed, past the bookshelf, straight to the toy box. He knelt beside it and lifted the lid. Inside were the usual things: plastic trucks, building blocks, stuffed animals that had seen better days, a puzzle with half the pieces missing. But Evan did not reach for any of those things. Instead, his small fingers slid along the bottom of the box, searching for something. I heard a soft click. The false bottom popped up slightly. "I made this 2 years ago," Evan said quietly, "with a screwdriver from your garage. 6 years old." He had been 6 years old when he constructed a hidden compartment in a toy box. While everyone around him assumed he was mentally impaired, he was building secret spaces to store evidence against his own parents. I watched as he lifted the wooden panel away, revealing a shallow compartment beneath. Inside were papers, folders, a small envelope, items that should not exist in a child's toy box. "Mom thinks I do not understand anything," Evan said, pulling out the contents. "She used to leave papers on her desk when it was just the two of us at home. She would make me stand there and watch her work because she knew I could not tell anyone. Once she got an emergency phone call and forgot to take a yellow envelope with her to the bathroom." He looked up at me. I took it. I knew if I took everything she would notice. So I only took what she would not miss. Things she threw away, things she forgot about. He handed me a manila folder, worn and creased from being hidden for so long. I sat down on the edge of the bed and opened it. Inside were handwritten pages. Rachel's handwriting. I would recognize it anywhere. The same looping letters she had used on birthday cards and grocery lists for 35 years. But these were not birthday cards. The first page had a heading written in blue ink. MS Progress Week 1. MS Megan Sullivan. My initials. I began to read. Day 3. Complained of fatigue during phone call. Good sign. Day 5. Mentioned forgetting where she put her keys. Dosage working. Day 7. Seemed confused during video chat. Forgot what she was saying mid-sentence. Increase next week. My hands began to shake. I turned to the next page. Week 2, Day 10. Found her wandering in backyard at odd hour. Said she could not remember why she went outside. Perfect. Week 3, Day 16. Nearly fell downstairs. Blamed it on being tired. No suspicion. The pages continued. Week after week, month after month. 24 weeks of documentation. 6 months of my sister tracking my decline. A decline she was causing. Week 12, tripped on stairs. Blamed it on age. Perfect. Week 18, forgot Rachel's birthday. She did not even notice. Almost ready. Week 21, having trouble following conversations. Increased dose showing results. I set the folder down because I was afraid I would tear it apart. Every symptom I had experienced over the past 6 months was listed here. The fatigue I blamed on getting older. The forgetfulness I attributed to stress. The confusion I told myself was nothing to worry about. None of it was natural. None of it was age. All of it was poison, carefully administered and meticulously documented by my own sister. "She was tracking your decline," I said, my voice barely recognizing itself. "Like a science experiment." Evan nodded and handed me another stack of papers. Printed pages this time, slightly crinkled. "Screenshots," he explained. "From her laptop. I learned how to take screenshots and send them to the printer when she was not home." I looked at the first page, a Google search history. How to make someone appear confused. The next page, sedatives that do not show up in routine blood tests. Then, early onset dementia symptoms in women over 40. And how long before sedatives cause permanent damage. My stomach turned. I forced myself to keep reading. Power of attorney requirements. Texas. Involuntary commitment to nursing facility. Texas law. How to declare someone mentally incompetent. Rachel had researched this thoroughly. She had studied how to poison me, how to cover her tracks, and how to take legal control of my assets once I was too brain damaged to stop her. The next pages were from medical websites, printouts about specific drugs. Lorazepam. Side effects include confusion, memory loss, fatigue, impaired coordination. Diphenhydramine. Long-term use linked to cognitive decline in older adults. Can cause drowsiness, disorientation, difficulty concentrating. Zolpidem. May cause anterograde amnesia. Users may perform activities while not fully awake and have no memory of them. 3 drugs. 3 different ways to destroy a mind. All of them available without prescription or easily obtained with fake symptoms. All of them impossible to detect without knowing exactly what to look for. She was not just poisoning me, I said slowly. She was doing it scientifically, methodically. Evan handed me a small envelope. This one contained receipts. Crumpled pharmacy receipts that had been smoothed and preserved. I found these in the trash, he said. Mom always throws away receipts. She does not know I dig through the garbage after she takes it out. I spread the receipts across the bed. 5 different pharmacies, CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, 2 independent drugstores on opposite sides of Austin. Dates spanning 6 months. Each receipt showed purchases of either lorazepam or diphenhydramine or zolpidem, but the names on the receipts were not Rachel's. Linda Morrison, Sarah Chen, Maria Rodriguez. She used fake names, I said, or fake IDs. Evan's voice was matter of fact. She went to different stores so no one would notice the pattern. I added up the quantities in my head. The amounts were staggering, enough to maintain a steady stream of poison for months. Enough to cause permanent damage, enough to kill. This is not impulsive, I said, more to myself than to Evan. This is planned, calculated, premeditated. She has been doing this since April, Evan confirmed. 6 months. I looked at the dates on the progress notes. He was right. 24 weeks, half a year. For 6 months I had been drinking poison disguised as herbal tea. For 6 months my sister had watched me decline and documented every symptom with clinical detachment. For 6 months I had blamed myself for getting older, getting weaker, getting more confused. I remembered the fatigue that started in spring. I had told myself I needed more exercise. The forgetfulness that crept in over summer. I had laughed it off as senior moments even though I was only 45. The dizzy spells that made me grab countertops for support. I had scheduled a doctor's appointment and then forgotten to go. Every symptom, every excuse, every moment of self-doubt. It was all the poison, all Rachel. How much damage had been done? Was my brain already compromised beyond repair? Would I ever fully recover? Or had 6 months of sedatives stolen something permanent from me? I needed to get tested. I needed to see a doctor. But that would have to wait. Right now, I needed to know everything. Is there anything else? I asked Evan. He reached back into the hidden compartment. His hand emerged holding a yellow envelope larger than the others. Sealed. Old. A single line of handwriting on the front. DNA results. Confidential. The handwriting was not Rachel's. It was older, more elegant, slightly shaky. My mother's handwriting, my real mother, who had died 3 years ago. I found this 6 months ago, Evan said quietly, hidden in Mom's closet, behind her winter coats. Why would Rachel have DNA results? And why would my mother's handwriting be on the envelope? I do not know why she kept it, Evan continued. Maybe she wanted proof. Maybe she forgot it was there. But after I read what was inside, I understood everything. I stared at the envelope in my hands. It weighed almost nothing. But I could feel the weight of secrets pressing down on it. What is this, Evan? What is inside? His blue eyes met mine. For a moment he looked like the small child he actually was. Scared, uncertain, carrying knowledge too heavy for his years. Open it, Aunt Megan. I slid my finger under the seal, my heart pounding. That is when everything changed for Mom, Evan said softly. That is why she hates you. I hesitated, the envelope half open. Evan's voice dropped to barely a whisper. That is why she wants you dead. The envelope felt weightless in my hands, but the secrets inside pressed down like a stone on my chest. I stared at my mother's handwriting on the front. DNA results, confidential. The letters were slightly shaky, written by a hand that had begun to weaken with age. My mother had held this envelope, had written on it, had hidden something inside that she never wanted anyone to find, and now Rachel had it, until Evan found it buried in her closet. I looked at the boy sitting beside me on the bed. His blue eyes were steady, patient. He had already read what was inside. He had carried this knowledge alone for months. Now he was waiting for me to catch up. My fingers trembled as I slid them under the seal. The paper was old, slightly yellowed at the edges. It tore easily, releasing a faint musty smell. Inside were 2 items, a folded letter on cream-colored stationery, and an official-looking document with a laboratory letterhead. I pulled out the document first. Austin Genetic Testing Laboratory. The address was on Research Boulevard, a part of town known for medical offices and clinics. The date at the top made my breath catch. March 15th, 2019, more than 5 years ago, just a few months before my parents died. Subject line: Paternity and maternity verification. Tested individuals: Rachel Sullivan and Thomas Sullivan, Margaret Sullivan. I scanned down to the results section. The clinical language blurred before my eyes, but the numbers were clear, brutally clear. Probability of biological relationship between Rachel Sullivan and Thomas Sullivan: 0.00%. Probability of biological relationship between Rachel Sullivan and Margaret Sullivan: 0.00%. Conclusion: the tested individual, Rachel Sullivan, shares no genetic material with the alleged parents. No biological relationship exists. I read it again, then a 3rd time. The words did not change. 0%. Not a small percentage that might indicate a distant relation. Not an inconclusive result that required further testing. 0. Absolute 0. Rachel shared no DNA with my parents. Rachel was not my sister. She had never been my sister. That is not possible, I whispered. My voice sounded strange, distant, like it belonged to someone else. She has always been my sister, since she was 3 years old. Evan said nothing. He just watched me with those ancient eyes, letting me process what I was seeing. I turned to the letter. My mother's handwriting filled the page, the same elegant script she had used for grocery lists and birthday cards my entire life. But this was not a birthday card. To whoever finds this after I am gone. The words hit me like a physical blow. My mother had written this, knowing she might not be around to explain, knowing someone else would have to read it and understand. I should have told you the truth years ago, Megan. I am sorry. Rachel is not your biological sister. She was adopted. The room spun. I gripped the edge of the bed to steady myself. Your father and I could not have more children after you. We tried for years. The doctors said it was impossible. We were heartbroken. We had always wanted a big family, and instead we had only you. Not that you were not enough. You were everything. But we wanted to give you a sibling, someone to grow up with, someone to share your life with. I remembered my childhood, the loneliness of being an only child, the way I had begged my parents for a brother or sister, the sad looks they exchanged when they thought I was not watching. When Rachel came to us, she was 3 years old, a little girl from a difficult situation. The adoption agency said her birth parents were unable to care for her. They said she needed a loving home. And we had so much love to give. A difficult situation. Agency language for something terrible. Something my parents had never explained. We decided never to tell anyone, not even you. We wanted Rachel to feel like she truly belonged, like she was born into this family, like there was no difference between you. We thought we were protecting her. We thought we were doing the right thing. 35 years. For 35 years, my parents had kept this secret. I had raised Rachel believing she was my flesh and blood. I had sacrificed my education, my career, my chance at my own family, all for a girl who was not even related to me. Not that it should matter. Adoption does not make someone less family, Love makes family, choice makes family. But the deception, the lie that had shaped my entire adult life, that mattered. Rachel found the adoption papers last month. They were hidden in our safety deposit box. She was looking for insurance documents after your father's hip surgery and found the file instead. She was devastated, angry. She demanded a DNA test to prove we were lying. We were not lying. The results confirmed what we always knew, but Rachel did not accept it. She could not accept it. My mother's handwriting became shakier toward the bottom of the page, the letters smaller, more cramped, as if she was running out of space or running out of time. I am writing this because I am afraid, Megan. Rachel has not been the same since she found out. She looks at your father and me differently now, like we are strangers, like we are enemies. Something has changed in her. Something cold has taken root. If anything happens to us, please look after yourself, and look after Evan. That poor boy needs someone who truly loves him. I love you, my daughter. My real daughter. Please forgive me for keeping this secret. Mom. The letter ended there. No date, no explanation of where she had hidden it or why. Just a mother's confession and a mother's fear. I set the papers down and closed my eyes. Behind my eyelids, memories flooded back. 35 years of memories, now recolored by this new truth. I was 10 years old when Rachel arrived. A warm spring afternoon. I was playing in the backyard, digging in the dirt for worms, when I heard my parents' car pull into the driveway. I ran around to the front of the house, expecting to see them returning from errands. Instead, I saw my mother climbing out of the passenger seat with a small child in her arms. A girl, maybe 3 years old, curly brown hair, big brown eyes filled with fear. She was clutching a ragged stuffed rabbit like her life depended on it. "Megan," my mother said, her voice bright with forced cheerfulness. "This is Rachel. She is your new baby sister." I did not ask questions. 10-year-olds do not question their parents. Not about things like this. If my mother said I had a baby sister, then I had a baby sister. That was how the world worked when you were 10. But I remembered Rachel's eyes that day, the terror in them. The way she flinched when my father tried to pat her head, the way she screamed that first night, screamed and screamed until she lost her voice. She came from a difficult situation, my mother had said. We need to be patient with her. We need to show her love. And I had. For 35 years, I had shown her nothing but love. Rachel was afraid of everything in those early months. Loud noises made her cry. Strangers made her hide behind my mother's legs. Even I scared her at first. She would not let me hold her hand or read her books or play with her toys. But slowly, gradually, she warmed to me. I became her protector, her champion, her big sister. I held her hand through every nightmare. I taught her to ride a bike. I helped her with homework. When bullies teased her in middle school, I walked her to class every day until they stopped. When a boy broke her heart in high school, I held her while she cried. I had loved Rachel like she was my own blood, because I believed she was. Now I knew the truth. She was not my sister. She had never been my sister. Our entire relationship was built on a lie my parents created with good intentions and terrible consequences. But here was the thing that broke my heart. It should not have mattered. Adoption does not make someone less family. If Rachel had learned the truth and come to me with questions and fears, I would have told her that biology meant nothing, that she was my sister in every way that counted, that I loved her regardless of DNA. Instead, she had chosen to hate us, to blame us, to punish us, to poison me. I opened my eyes and looked at Evan. When did Rachel find out? When exactly did she read those adoption papers? About 2 years ago, Evan said, right after Grandma and Grandpa died. Mom was cleaning out their house. She found a locked drawer in Grandpa's desk. I remembered that day. I had been at the house too, sorting through my parents' belongings. Rachel had insisted on handling the paperwork, the financial documents, the important files. I had been too grief-stricken to argue. She found the adoption file in that drawer, Evan continued. I remember because she locked herself in the bathroom for an hour after. Dad had to break down the door. What happened after that? She cried for a week, would not eat, would not sleep. I heard her screaming at Dad at night, screaming about lies and stolen identity and everyone being fake. I could picture it. The shock of discovering your entire identity was built on a secret, the sense of betrayal, the rage at the people who had hidden the truth. But then she stopped crying, Evan said. And that was worse. Worse how? She went quiet, cold. She stopped visiting Grandma and Grandpa's graves. She took down all their photos in our house. I had noticed that. The last time I visited Rachel's home, months ago, I had commented on the empty spaces on the walls. Redecorating, Rachel had said with a tight smile. Time for a change. She said they lied to her entire life, Evan continued, that they stole her identity, that they pretended to love her when they were really just using her. Using her for what? Evan shrugged. I do not know. Mom does not make sense when she talks about it. She says Grandma and Grandpa owed her. That you owe her. That everything you have should be hers as payment for the lie. Payment. As if 35 years of love was a debt that could be collected. As if my house and savings could compensate for an adoption kept secret too long. The twisted logic made a horrible kind of sense. In Rachel's mind, she had been wronged, cheated out of her true identity, raised under false pretenses by people who were not really her family, and now she wanted compensation. She wanted everything. Daniel made it worse, Evan added. Dad kept telling Mom she deserved compensation, that the house and the money and everything you owned was rightfully hers. Of course Daniel encouraged it. Daniel with his gambling debts and his desperate need for cash. Daniel who saw me not as family, but as an obstacle between him and financial rescue. Two broken people, one fueled by resentment, the other by greed. Together, they had designed a plan to take everything I had, including my life. Evan, I said slowly, processing the timeline. You said Rachel found out about the adoption 2 years ago, and my parents died about 2 years ago. He nodded. When exactly did they die? In relation to when Rachel found those papers? Evan's face went pale. His small body tensed beside me. Grandma and Grandpa died in March, 3 years ago now. But Mom found the papers while cleaning out their house, so she found out after they died. I frowned. Something did not add up. My mother's letter said Rachel had demanded a DNA test to prove they were lying. That meant Rachel confronted them while they were still alive. That meant the timeline was wrong. Unless my mother wrote that letter before she died. Unless Rachel found out while my parents were still alive. Unless the official story about when Rachel discovered the truth was itself another lie. Evan, I said carefully. Is there something else you heard? Something about Grandma and Grandpa? His hands twisted together in his lap. The first sign of nervousness I had seen from him since he started speaking. One night, about a year ago, Mom and Dad were drinking wine. They thought I was asleep. What did you hear? Evan's voice dropped to barely a whisper. Mom said something I will never forget. Tell me. She said, It worked the first time, did it not? With them. No one suspected a thing. The room went cold. My skin prickled with sudden dread. And Dad laughed and said, The tea was perfect, just like it will be with her. I could not breathe. The walls seemed to close in around me. Evan, I managed. Are you saying what I think you are saying? He looked at me with eyes too old for his face. Eyes that had seen too much, known too much, hidden too much. I think Mom and Dad killed Grandma and Grandpa, he said. And now they are trying to kill you the same way. The words hung in the air between us. I think Mom and Dad killed Grandma and Grandpa. My 8-year-old nephew had just accused his parents of double murder. And the worst part was that I believed him. I stood up from the bed, my legs unsteady beneath me. The room felt too small suddenly. The cheerful dinosaur wallpaper seemed to mock me. This was supposed to be a safe space, a child's room. Instead, it had become the place where my entire world collapsed. My parents, Thomas and Margaret Sullivan, the people who raised me, who loved me unconditionally, who gave me everything they had. 3 years ago, I had stood at their graves and wept. Heart failure, the doctors said about my father. Complications from grief, they said about my mother when she followed him 2 months later. I had accepted those explanations because they made sense. My parents were in their 70s. They had been married for 50 years. When one died, the other often followed. Broken heart syndrome, some people called it. A poetic way to describe the loss of will to live. But now I was learning that poetry might have been poison, that grief might have been murder, that my sister, the girl I raised, the woman I sacrificed everything for, might have killed them both. I walked to the window and stared out at the backyard. The same backyard where I had played as a child, where my mother had grown roses every summer, where my father had taught me to throw a football. They would have been so proud of me, my mother wrote in that letter, and they would have loved Evan. Now they were gone. And their killer was floating on a cruise ship somewhere in the Caribbean, probably sipping champagne and celebrating how close she was to finishing what she started. Evan appeared beside me at the window. His small hand found mine. "I know it is a lot," he said quietly. "I have been carrying it alone for a long time." I looked down at him. This child who had witnessed more horror than most adults, who had lived in silence for 8 years because the people who should have protected him had threatened to destroy him instead, who had gathered evidence against his own parents to save the life of an aunt he barely knew. "How did you carry this?" I asked, knowing what they might have done, living with them every day. Evan was quiet for a moment. "I pretended I did not know," he finally said. That was the hardest part, acting like everything was normal, eating dinner with them, watching TV with them, knowing they might be murderers. His voice cracked slightly on the last word. "But I could not tell anyone. Who would believe a mute kid? And if I tried to speak, Dad would send me away. I would disappear into that hospital he talked about. And then there would be no one left to stop them." The weight of his burden crushed my heart. 8 years old, and he had appointed himself the last line of defense against evil, because no one else could see it, because no one else would believe it. "You are not alone anymore," I said, squeezing his hand. "I believe you, and we are going to stop them." Evan looked up at me with something like hope in his eyes, the first real hope I had seen there since he started speaking. "What do we do now?" The question snapped something into focus inside me. For the past hour, I had been reacting, processing shock after shock, revelation after revelation. My mind had been spinning in circles, trying to absorb the impossible. But I was a soldier. I had been trained for situations like this. Not exactly like this, of course. No military manual covers discovering your sister is trying to poison you, but the principles were the same: hostile territory, unknown threats, limited resources, need for intelligence. In Iraq, panic got you killed. Planning kept you alive. I took a deep breath and pushed the emotions aside. There would be time to grieve later, time to rage and cry and fall apart. But not now. Now I needed to think like a soldier. I walked back to the bed and sat down, pulling Evan with me. "Let me assess the situation," I said, more to myself than to him. "What we know, Rachel and Daniel have been poisoning me for 6 months. They may have murdered my parents 3 years ago. They plan to declare me mentally incompetent, take control of my assets, and probably let me die in a nursing home. What we have: evidence that Evan collected, progress notes, search history, receipts, the DNA results, and my mother's letter. 4 days before they returned from their cruise. What we need: medical proof that I have been poisoned, investigation into my parents' deaths, legal protection, allies who can help us fight back. Evan listened intently, his expression serious. "I need to get my blood tested," I said. "That is the first priority. If there are drugs in my system, that is physical evidence they cannot explain away." "Where will you go?" "Not anywhere close. Rachel might have connections at local clinics. I need to go somewhere outside Austin, somewhere anonymous." The second priority was investigating my parents' deaths, but that was beyond my capabilities. I needed someone with access to medical records, someone who knew how to dig into cold cases, someone I could trust completely. One name surfaced in my mind, a name I had not thought about in months, but one that had never really left me. Marcus Torres. The memory hit me like a wave. Fallujah, 2007. My second tour. Our unit was on patrol in hostile territory when the world exploded. An IED hidden in a pile of garbage. The vehicle in front of mine flipped like a toy, shrapnel everywhere, screaming, gunfire from multiple directions. I remember the impact throwing me against the door, remember the taste of blood in my mouth, remember looking down and seeing my leg pinned under twisted metal, unable to move. The ambush was coordinated. They had been waiting for us. Bullets sparked off the wreckage around me as enemy fighters closed in. I could not reach my weapon, could not free my leg, could only lie there and wait to die. Then Torres appeared. Sergeant Marcus Torres. 6'2", built like a linebacker, with a scar running down his left cheek from a previous deployment. He had been in the vehicle behind mine when the IED went off. By all logic, he should have taken cover, should have waited for backup, should have followed protocol. Instead, he ran straight into the kill zone. "Sullivan!" he shouted over the gunfire. "Stay with me. Do not you dare die on my watch." He grabbed my vest and pulled. The metal groaned but did not give. Bullets kicked up dirt inches from his feet. He did not flinch. He grabbed a piece of debris and used it as a lever, prying the twisted metal away from my leg. The pain was blinding. I screamed. He ignored it. "Almost there," he said through gritted teeth. His shoulder was bleeding. He had already been hit. He did not seem to notice. With one final heave, the metal gave way. Torres threw me over his shoulder in a fireman's carry and ran through the bullets and the chaos and the death, ran until we reached cover behind a concrete barrier where the medics were waiting. "You owe me a beer when we get home," he said, blood dripping down his arm. Then he passed out. Torres saved my life that day, but what he did not know was that I saved his too, just not in the same way. After that tour, Torres developed severe PTSD, nightmares, flashbacks. He could not hold down a job, could not maintain relationships, could not find a reason to keep going. I was the only person he would talk to. For months, I called him every week, sometimes every day. I listened when he needed to vent. I talked him down when the darkness got too close. I reminded him that the war was over, that he was home, that his life still had meaning. He got better, slowly. Eventually, he found his footing again, left the Army in 2015 and became a private investigator in Houston, specialized in fraud cases, missing persons, and cold cases. He was good at it, really good. We had stayed in touch over the years, not constantly, but enough. Birthday messages, occasional phone calls, the kind of connection that survives distance and time because it was forged in fire. If anyone could help me investigate my parents' deaths, it was Marcus Torres. I looked at Evan. "I need to make a phone call. Can you give me a few minutes?" He nodded and headed for the door. Then he stopped and turned back. "Aunt Megan? Who are you calling?" "An old friend. Someone who saved my life once. I am hoping he can do it again." I went to my home office and closed the door. The late afternoon sun slanted through the blinds, casting long shadows across the desk. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the name I was looking for. Fallujah. That was how I had saved his number, a reminder of where we met, of what we survived. I pressed call. My heart pounded as the line rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Sullivan? That you?" His voice was the same, deep, slightly raspy, with a hint of Texas drawl he had never lost. "Marcus, I need help, and I cannot go to the police. Not yet. Silence on the other end. Torres knew me, knew I was not the type to ask for favors, knew that if I was calling like this, something was seriously wrong. Talk to me. What is going on? I told him everything, condensed it into the essential facts like a combat briefing. My sister was poisoning me. My sister might have murdered my parents. I had a witness, an 8-year-old boy. I had preliminary evidence. I needed a deeper investigation. When I finished, there was a long pause. Jesus Christ, Meg. Your sister? The one you practically raised? Yeah, that one. Another pause. I could hear him processing, the way he always did. Sorting information, assessing threats. What do you need from me? I need you to pull my parents' medical records, death certificates, autopsy reports if there were any. I need to know if there were any red flags, anything that could suggest foul play. And I need it quiet. No official channels until I have enough to nail them. I still have contacts at Austin PD, Torres said, and a friend at the medical examiner's office. I can start digging tonight. Give me 24 hours. Relief washed over me. Thank you, Marcus. But Megan, his voice turned serious. If what you are saying is true, these people are dangerous. They have killed before. They are trying to kill again. You need to be careful. I survived Fallujah. I can survive my own sister. Fallujah was honest. Enemies wore uniforms. You could see them coming. This is different. This is family. This is someone who knows your routines, your weaknesses, your blind spots. He was right. Rachel had been studying me for months. Years, maybe. She knew exactly how to hurt me. Watch your back, Torres continued. Do not eat or drink anything you did not prepare yourself. And keep that kid close. Sounds like he is the only reason you are still alive. I will, I promise. One more thing, Meg. His voice dropped lower, more serious than I had ever heard it. Let me tell you something about killers who got away with it once. They get confident. They think they are smarter than everyone else. That confidence makes them dangerous. But it also makes them sloppy. They will make mistakes. Our job is to be ready when they do. You said they are coming back in 3 days? Yes, Sunday evening. That is not a lot of time. But it might be enough. Do not confront them before we have solid evidence. One wrong move and they will destroy everything. Or worse, they will accelerate their plan. I understood. Patience was critical. I had to play the long game even though every instinct screamed at me to act now. Keep acting normal, Torres said. Keep pretending the tea is working. Document everything, dates, times, symptoms you have experienced. And Megan, get your blood tested. Tomorrow. First thing. If there is poison in your system, that is physical evidence they cannot explain away. Understood. I will call you after the blood test. And Meg, do not thank me yet. Thank me when they are in handcuffs. Before I could respond, he added one final warning. If they killed your parents and got away clean, they have had practice. That means they know how to cover tracks, how to look innocent. Do not underestimate them just because one is your sister. I will not. I will dig into those medical records tonight. If there is anything suspicious, I will find it. There was a pause. When Torres spoke again, his voice was heavy with concern. But Megan, you are not just living with your sister anymore. You are living with a potential murderer. Maybe two. Another pause. Sleep with one eye open. The line went dead. I set the phone down on my desk and stared out the window. The sun was setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Beautiful, peaceful, a lie, just like everything else. 3 days. Rachel and Daniel would walk through my door in 3 days, expecting to find a confused, weakened woman they could control. Instead, they would find a soldier who knew exactly what they had done. I stood up and walked back to find Evan. He was sitting on the couch in the living room, his teddy bear back in his arms, watching the last light of day fade through the windows. Day 1 was almost over. 3 days remained before the enemy returned. 3 days to prepare for a battle where losing meant death. I sat down beside Evan and put my arm around him. "We have work to do," I said quietly. "Starting tomorrow." He leaned against me, small and warm and brave beyond his years. "We will be ready," he said. I hoped he was right. Because Torres was correct about one thing. We were not just facing criminals anymore. We were facing killers who had tasted success, who believed they were untouchable. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I did not sleep that night. Torres's warning echoed through the darkness every time I closed my eyes. Sleep with one eye open. So I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to every creak of the house, planning my next moves. By 6 a.m, I had a clear list of objectives. Task 1 was the blood test. I needed medical proof that drugs were in my system, physical evidence that could not be denied or explained away. Task 2 was finding a lawyer, someone who understood elder abuse cases, someone who could guide me through the legal minefield ahead. Task 3 was buying recording equipment. Texas was a one-party consent state, which meant I could legally record any conversation I was part of. When Rachel and Daniel returned, I wanted every word they said captured and preserved. The sun rose over Austin, casting pale October light through my bedroom window. Another beautiful day in Texas. Another day of pretending everything was normal while preparing for war. I got up and checked on Evan. He was already awake, sitting on the edge of his bed, dressed and ready. The boy who had been silent for 8 years now looked like a soldier awaiting orders. "Busy day ahead," I told him. "We need to move." He nodded without question. I realized then how much discipline this child had developed. 8 years of hiding. 8 years of watching and waiting. He had more self-control than half the soldiers I had served with in Iraq. We ate breakfast quickly. Eggs and toast that I prepared myself. Nothing from any package that Rachel might have touched. The tea box still sat on the counter, untouched since Thursday. A weapon disguised as a gift. Evidence waiting to be tested. I chose the clinic carefully. Not anywhere in Austin proper. Rachel might have connections. Instead, I drove 30 minutes north to Round Rock, to an urgent care facility where no one knew my name or my family. The drive gave me time to think. Evan sat in the back seat watching the Texas landscape roll past. Occasionally I caught his eye in the rearview mirror. He looked calm, focused, ready, better paranoid than dead. That had been my motto in Iraq. It applied here too. The clinic was a small building in a strip mall, sandwiched between a dry cleaner and a sandwich shop. Clean, anonymous, perfect. I filled out the intake forms with a simple explanation. Routine checkup, concerns about fatigue and memory issues. I did not mention poisoning, not yet. The less I said, the less chance of word getting back to anyone who might know Rachel. The waiting room was half full, a mother with a coughing toddler, an elderly man with a bandaged hand, ordinary people with ordinary problems. None of them knew they were sitting next to a woman whose sister was trying to kill her. Evan sat beside me, flipping through a children's magazine without really reading it. His eyes kept scanning the room, watching, assessing, old habits. Mrs. Sullivan? A nurse in blue scrubs stood in the doorway. I squeezed Evan's hand and followed her back. The examination room was small and sterile. Blood pressure cuff on the wall, paper covering the table, the smell of antiseptic. I had been in rooms like this 100 times during my military career, physicals, vaccinations, post-deployment checkups. But this felt different. This felt like life or death. Dr. Patel entered a few minutes later. A woman in her early 40s, of Indian descent, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She introduced herself with a warm handshake. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said, reviewing my intake form. "You mentioned fatigue and memory concerns. How long has this been going on?" "About 6 months." I kept my voice steady. "Getting progressively worse." She frowned. "That is quite sudden for someone your age. Any major life changes? New medications? Changes in diet?" "Nothing I can think of." I hated lying, but the truth would have sounded insane. "Let us run a comprehensive panel," Dr. Patel said. "Blood work, metabolic function, and given your symptoms, I would like to include a toxicology screen, just to rule out any environmental factors." Toxicology screen. She had no idea how accurate that instinct was. The blood draw was quick, 3 vials of dark red liquid that would tell me exactly what Rachel had been putting in my body for 6 months. I watched the nurse label them, seal them, prepare them for the lab. Whatever poison Rachel used, it was documented in those vials now. I asked for rush results, paid extra for expedited testing. 2 hours, Dr. Patel told me. Preliminary results. Comprehensive toxicology might take longer. 2 hours. I could wait 2 hours. Evan and I sat in the waiting room while the lab processed my blood. He read magazines. I stared at the wall and tried not to think about what the results might show. 2 hours felt like 2 years. When Dr. Patel finally called me back, her expression had changed. The warmth was still there, but underneath it was something else. Concern, confusion. The look of a doctor who had found something she could not explain. "Mrs. Sullivan," she said, closing the door behind us. "Can we speak privately?" I glanced through the window at Evan in the waiting room. He caught my eye and nodded. He understood. I followed Dr. Patel to her office. She sat behind her desk and gestured for me to take the chair across from her. A folder lay open in front of her. "My results." "I have to be direct with you," she said. "Your results are concerning." I had known they would be, but hearing it confirmed still hit like a punch to the stomach. "We found elevated levels of 3 substances in your blood," she continued. "Lorazepam, diphenhydramine, zolpidem, the same drugs from Rachel's search history, the same drugs from the pharmacy receipts. Each of these alone would not be alarming," Dr. Patel said, "but combined at these levels for what appears to be extended use." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Mrs. Sullivan, these levels indicate chronic exposure over several months. Your cognitive symptoms, the fatigue, the memory issues, they are consistent with this drug combination." I nodded slowly. "What does that mean for my health?" "Frankly, I am surprised you are as coherent as you are. The levels we found should have caused significant impairment. The fact that you are sitting here speaking clearly, asking rational questions, is remarkable." She leaned forward, her expression grave. "Another few weeks at this level, and you could have suffered permanent cognitive damage. Possibly irreversible. We are talking about long-term memory impairment. Difficulty with basic tasks, potentially a vegetative state." I forced myself to ask the question. If I had kept taking these substances at this rate, how long before... Dr. Patel hesitated. "It is hard to say exactly, but based on the trajectory, 3 to 4 weeks, maybe less. You could have been in a vegetative state, or dead." The words hung in the air. 3 to 4 weeks. Rachel had been a month away from finishing me off. "Mrs. Sullivan," Dr. Patel said carefully, "how did these substances get into your system?" I met her eyes. That is what I am going to find out. I asked for complete documentation, official reports, copies of all results, everything notarized and time-stamped. Dr. Patel obliged without further questions, though her eyes were full of unasked ones. She knew something was wrong. She just did not know how wrong. I left the clinic with a folder full of evidence and a cold certainty in my chest. Medical proof, physical documentation of attempted murder. Rachel could not explain this away. The next stop was downtown Austin. I had found a lawyer during the drive to Round Rock, searching on my phone while Evan watched the road. Linda Chen of Chen and Associates, specializing in elder abuse, guardianship disputes, and family fraud. Perfect. Her office was on Congress Avenue, in one of those tall glass buildings that reflected the Texas sun. The reception area was all leather chairs and law degrees on the walls. Expensive, professional, exactly what I needed. Evan came with me. I was not letting him out of my sight until this was over. "Mrs. Sullivan," the receptionist said after a brief wait, Ms. Chen will see you now. Linda Chen was not what I expected. Mid-50s, Chinese-American, with short black hair and sharp eyes behind designer glasses. She wore a gray suit that probably cost more than my monthly pension. But there was nothing soft about her. She looked like someone who had fought battles and won them. I understand you have a sensitive matter to discuss, she said, gesturing for me to sit. Very sensitive. And possibly criminal. I gave her the condensed version, the same briefing I had given Torres. Sister poisoning me. Evidence collected by 8-year-old nephew. Possible connection to parents' deaths 3 years ago. Need for legal protection and guidance. Linda Chen listened without interrupting. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, her pen moving in quick, precise strokes. When I finished, she set the pen down and studied me. Mrs. Sullivan, what you are describing is attempted murder. Potentially double murder if your parents were victims too. This is not just elder abuse. This is a major criminal case. I know. But to prosecute, we need irrefutable evidence. What you have now is a start. But we need more. That is why I am here. I need to know my legal options, how to collect evidence properly, what I can and cannot do. Linda nodded approvingly. Smart. Too many people act on emotion and destroy their own cases. Let me explain your situation. She walked me through Texas law. Recording conversations was legal as long as one party consented. Since I would be part of any conversation with Rachel and Daniel, I could record them without their knowledge. Those recordings would be admissible in court. She outlined a strategy. Keep collecting physical evidence, tea packets, receipts, documents. Get the blood test results officially notarized and stored with a third party. When Rachel and Daniel returned, act normal, act weakened. Let them think their plan was working. Create situations where they might confess or reveal their plans, Linda said. But do not push too hard. Do not ask leading questions that could be seen as entrapment. Let them talk. Let them incriminate themselves. What about my nephew? If his parents go to prison, you can petition for emergency guardianship. Given the circumstances, especially if the boy testifies, it would be a strong case. But let us focus on survival first. Guardianship comes after. She recommended recording equipment, small, discreet devices, a pen recorder, a button camera. She gave me the name of a shop that specialized in such things. I will handle it, I said. Before I could stand, Linda held up her hand. One more thing, Mrs. Sullivan. I took the liberty of running a preliminary background check on your brother-in-law. I hope you do not mind. I raised an eyebrow. What did you find? She opened a folder on her desk. Daniel Morrison, real estate agent. Looks successful on paper. But beneath the surface, he is drowning. She ran down the numbers. Credit card debt of $47,000. Personal loans totaling $65,000. And the most damaging part. Gambling debts to private creditors. Approximately $180,000. $180,000. I stared at her. That is why he needs me dead. Not for love. For money. Linda nodded. The people Daniel owes do not accept late payments. He is desperate, and desperate people do desperate things. I did the math in my head. My house was worth around $450,000. My savings and military retirement totaled roughly $300,000. Together, my estate was worth about $750,000. More than enough to pay Daniel's debts and leave plenty left over. I was not just a target of opportunity, I said slowly. I was their lottery ticket. Linda closed the folder and looked at me with something like respect. Mrs. Sullivan, I want to be very clear about something. Daniel Morrison is $180,000 in debt to people who do not accept late payments. Your sister may hate you for personal reasons, but Daniel needs you dead for financial survival. She leaned forward, her voice dropping. They are not just after your house. They need your entire estate to cover his gambling debts. A pause. You are worth more to them dead than alive. Do you understand what that means? I understood. It meant they would not stop. It meant half measures would not work. It meant this was not just about justice or revenge. It meant this was survival, pure and simple. It means they will not stop, I said quietly. Not until one of us is in the ground. Linda nodded. Then we need to make sure it is not you. I stood and shook her hand. Thank you for your honesty. She held my grip for a moment. Thank me when you are still breathing next week. I walked out of her office with Evan's hand in mine. The sun was setting over Austin, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Day 2 was ending. 2 days remained before Rachel and Daniel returned. 2 days to prepare for a battle where the stakes were everything. My life, Evan's future, justice for my parents, all of it hanging in the balance. And somewhere out on the Caribbean, my sister was probably sipping champagne, believing her plan was working perfectly. She had no idea what was waiting for her at home. Saturday morning arrived with pale autumn sunlight and the weight of everything I now knew pressing down on my shoulders. 2 days had passed since Evan broke his silence. 2 days of revelations that had shattered my understanding of family, trust, and the sister I thought I knew. 1 day remained before Rachel and Daniel returned from their cruise. I stood at the kitchen counter making breakfast. Pancakes for Evan, coffee for myself. The tea box still sat where Rachel had left it, untouched, a silent reminder of her intentions. I had thought about throwing it away, but Linda Chen advised keeping it. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Evan sat at the table watching me cook. He had talked almost non-stop since Thursday, making up for 8 years of enforced silence. This morning he was telling me about a book on marine biology he had read at the library last year. Did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? And blue blood? And they can fit through any opening larger than their beak? I did not know any of those things, but I loved hearing him talk. Every word was a small victory over the parents who had tried to steal his voice. The recording equipment I had purchased yesterday sat in my bedroom, hidden in a drawer. A pen recorder that looked completely ordinary. A button camera that could be sewn into clothing. A backup audio device small enough to hide behind a picture frame. Redundancy. In combat, always have a backup for your backup. Torres had not called yet. He was supposed to have preliminary findings by now. Every hour that passed without news made my stomach tighter. The doorbell rang. Evan went silent mid-sentence. His eyes met mine across the kitchen. We were not expecting anyone. I moved toward the door, my hand instinctively reaching toward the knife block before I stopped myself. Old habits. This was Austin, Texas, not Fallujah. Probably just a delivery driver or a neighbor. I checked the peephole. An elderly woman stood on my porch, white hair pinned up neatly, wearing a floral dress despite the October chill. She held a casserole dish covered in aluminum foil. Recognition flooded through me. Eleanor Patterson. She lived 3 houses down, had been on Pecan Grove Lane for more than 40 years. More importantly, she had been my mother's closest friend. I opened the door. Megan, dear, I hope I am not intruding. Her voice was warm, slightly wavering with age, but her blue eyes were sharp as ever. I made my famous tuna casserole. Thought you might need some comfort food. Mrs. Patterson, please come in. She stepped inside, her eyes doing a quick sweep of the living room. The same observant gaze I remembered from childhood. My mother always said Eleanor noticed everything. I saw your sister's car here Thursday morning, she said, setting the casserole on the kitchen counter. Then I noticed it was gone. And I thought I should check on you. She turned to face me, and her expression shifted. Became more serious. You look tired, dear. Thinner than last time I saw you. Are you feeling all right? You seem different. I hesitated. How much should I tell her? Could I trust her? But then I remembered something. My mother's letter. The one hidden in the DNA envelope. She had written about being afraid. About Rachel changing. About needing someone to look after me and Evan. My mother had trusted Eleanor Patterson with her secrets. Maybe I could too. Before I could respond, Evan appeared in the kitchen doorway. He had followed me from the table, his marine biology book still in his hand. Mrs. Patterson's face softened when she saw him. "And who is this handsome young man?" "This is Evan, my nephew, Rachel's son." Something flickered across Mrs. Patterson's face, a brief shadow that passed as quickly as it appeared. But I caught it. Ah, Rachel's boy. She said the name like it left a bitter taste in her mouth. I made a decision. "Mrs. Patterson, would you like some coffee? I think we should talk." We settled in the living room. Evan retreated upstairs at my suggestion, though I knew he would probably be listening from the top of the stairs. I could not blame him. After 8 years of silence, eavesdropping was second nature. Mrs. Patterson sat in the armchair that had once been my father's favorite. She looked around the room, her eyes lingering on family photos, on furniture she probably recognized from my parents' house. "Your mother would be worried about you, dear," she said quietly. "You have that same look she had, toward the end." My heart skipped. "What do you mean toward the end?" She set down her coffee cup and sighed. The sound of someone who had been holding on to something heavy for too long. "I have been wanting to talk to you for a long time, Megan. But I did not know how. Your mother and I were close, very close. She told me things she did not tell anyone else. What kind of things? Things about Rachel." The name hung in the air between us. Mrs. Patterson leaned forward, her voice dropping. "Margaret was afraid, Megan. In the last year before she passed, she said Rachel had changed, become cold, distant." She paused, gathering herself. "Your mother told me once, she said Rachel has cold eyes now, that she looks at me like I am a stranger, like I am an enemy. Your mother was scared of her own daughter. Can you imagine that?" I could imagine it. I was living it. "Did my mother ever tell you about Rachel's background?" Mrs. Patterson nodded slowly. "She told me everything, about the adoption, about keeping it secret. She regretted that decision, you know, keeping it from Rachel." Her eyes grew distant, remembering. But by the time Margaret wanted to tell her, it was too late. Rachel had already found out on her own. I leaned forward. "Mrs. Patterson, I need to ask you something directly. Do you think my parents' deaths were natural?" Silence fell over the room. Heavy, loaded, the kind of silence that comes before a confession. "I have wondered about that for 3 years, dear." She picked up her coffee cup, then set it down again without drinking. Her hands were trembling slightly. "Your father and mother were healthy, strong for their age. Thomas walked 3 miles every morning. Margaret did yoga twice a week. Then suddenly, heart failure? Both of them? Within months of each other?" She shook her head. "Your father went first. They said his heart just gave out. But I saw him the day before, Megan. He was fine, laughing, full of life. We had lunch together at the diner on Main Street. He ate a full meal and talked about plans for the spring garden." Her voice cracked slightly. "Then Margaret. She declined so fast after Thomas died. The doctors said grief. But I have seen grief, dear. I have buried a husband myself. That was not grief. What was it?" She was confused, forgetting things, falling asleep at odd hours, having trouble following conversations. Mrs. Patterson looked at me with eyes full of unshed tears. "Just like you have been lately. I noticed it when I saw you last month. The way you paused mid-sentence, the way you seemed to lose track of what you were saying. It is the same pattern, Megan. The exact same pattern." The pieces clicked together. Rachel had practiced on our parents, refined her technique, learned what worked and what did not. Then she had turned that knowledge on me. "Mrs. Patterson," I said carefully, "I need to tell you something, and I need you to believe me." I told her, not everything, but enough, that I had evidence Rachel was poisoning me, that Evan had witnessed things and gathered proof, that I suspected Rachel and Daniel had done the same thing to my parents. When I finished, Mrs. Patterson was crying silently, tears streaming down her wrinkled cheeks. "Oh, dear God," she whispered. "I knew it. In my heart, I knew it. But I was afraid to say anything, afraid people would think I was a crazy old woman making accusations. She grabbed my hands, gripping them with surprising strength. "What do you need from me, Megan?" "I failed your mother." I saw the signs and said nothing. "I will not fail you too. Can you testify, if it comes to that, about my mother's condition before she died? About what she told you? I will testify in court if I have to, in front of anyone. Margaret Sullivan was my best friend for 30 years. I owe her this." There was steel in her voice now, the same steel I had heard in my own voice when I decided to fight back. "I have letters," she added. "Your mother wrote to me sometimes. Old-fashioned, I know. But I kept everything. There is one letter in particular. She wrote it about a month before Thomas died. She said Rachel had been acting strange, asking questions about the will, about the house, about how much everything was worth. More evidence, more pieces of the puzzle. Can you bring me those letters?" "I will bring them today, this afternoon." She stood up, wiping her eyes. Then she stopped and looked at me with an expression I could not quite read. "But Megan, be careful. Rachel is smart, calculating. She fooled your parents. She fooled me. She has fooled everyone for years. Do not underestimate her." "I will not." Mrs. Patterson left with a promise to return within hours. I watched her walk down the sidewalk, this 78-year-old woman who had just become an ally in a war she never asked to join. My phone rang before she reached her car. "Torres." I answered immediately. "Marcus. What did you find?" His voice was grim. "I have been up all night, Meg. Called in every favor I had. Got access to your parents' medical records, death certificates, the medical examiner's notes." A pause. "You are not going to like what I found. Tell me. Your father's death certificate says cardiac arrest, but the ME's notes mention elevated potassium levels. At the time, they attributed it to kidney issues. But I pulled his complete medical history. There is no prior record of kidney problems. None. He had the kidneys of a man 20 years younger. And my mother? Her records are worse." I braced myself against the kitchen counter. Her blood work from 2 weeks before she died showed potassium levels that were through the roof. Not just elevated, dangerous. Levels that high can cause fatal arrhythmia. Fatal arrhythmia, heart attack, natural causes on paper, but murder in reality. "The doctors thought it was related to medications she was taking," Torres continued, "except there is no record of who prescribed those medications, or why she was taking them." "Because no one prescribed them," I said quietly. "Rachel was giving them to her, in the tea. That is what I figured." "Megan, potassium chloride is virtually undetectable in an autopsy if you know what you're doing. It mimics natural heart failure. It is what they use in lethal injections. I knew that. Every soldier knew that. Potassium chloride was the drug that actually stopped the heart in executions. Clean, quick. Almost impossible to prove unless you knew exactly what to look for. "Someone gave your mother enough potassium to stop her heart," Torres said, "and they made it look natural." His voice hardened. "Your sister did not just poison your parents, Meg. She executed them." I closed my eyes. Behind my eyelids I saw my mother's face, my father's smile. Two people who had loved me unconditionally, murdered by the girl they had taken in and raised as their own. "Can you prove it? In court?" Torres sighed. "The medical evidence is circumstantial. Potassium occurs naturally in the body. But combined with everything else, the pattern, the motive, the current poisoning, a good prosecutor could build a case, especially if we get a confession." "When do they get back?" "Tomorrow, Sunday evening." "That is not much time." "You need to be ready." "Do you have everything in place? Recording equipment? Exit strategy?" "Yes to both." "Good." His voice dropped lower. "Megan, listen to me carefully. These people killed your parents and got away with it for 3 years. They have been poisoning you for 6 months. When they come back tomorrow, they are expecting to find a confused, weakened woman they can control. Instead, they are going to find a soldier who knows exactly what they did." A pause. That makes tomorrow the most dangerous day of your life. Do not let them see you coming, not until you are ready to strike." The line went dead. I set the phone down and looked around my kitchen. The tea box sat on the counter. Evidence of one crime. In my bedroom, I had evidence of another. In Mrs. Patterson's house, letters that proved my mother had been afraid. Tomorrow. Rachel and Daniel would walk through my door tomorrow, expecting their victim. They would find their executioner instead. Evan appeared in the doorway. He had heard everything, of course. His face was pale but determined. "Tomorrow," he said quietly. "Tomorrow," I confirmed. "We end this." He nodded once. A soldier acknowledging orders. Outside, the sun was setting on day 3. One more night. Then the battle would begin. And this time, I would not be the one who lost. Sunday morning arrived with deceptive calm. The October sun rose over Austin like any other day, golden light spilling through my bedroom curtains, birds singing in the oak tree outside. But this was not any other day. This was the day before Rachel and Daniel returned, the day before everything changed. I had not slept well. Torres's words kept echoing through the darkness. "Your sister executed them." Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my parents' faces. My mother's gentle smile, my father's proud eyes at my army graduation. 2 people who had loved me unconditionally, murdered by the girl they had raised as their own. But I pushed the grief aside. There would be time for mourning later. For now, I needed to focus. One more day to prepare, one more day before the enemy returned. I got out of bed and went through my checklist. Recording equipment tested and ready. Pen recorder with fresh batteries, small enough to slip into any pocket. Button camera sewn into my gray cardigan, indistinguishable from the other buttons. Backup audio device already hidden in the living room, tucked behind a family photo on the bookshelf. Linda Chen on standby with legal documents. Torres monitoring from Houston, ready to coordinate with Austin PD when the time came. Evan was already awake when I checked his room. He sat on the edge of his bed, dressed and alert, looking like a soldier awaiting deployment, which in a way he was. "Big day tomorrow," I said. "We should go over the plan one more time." He nodded. "When they come back, I go silent again. Like before. Until you give me the signal." "Exactly. Can you do that? Can you pretend for one more day?" His blue eyes met mine with a steadiness that belonged to someone much older. "I have been pretending for 8 years, Aunt Megan. One more day will not break me." I believed him. This boy had more discipline than half my unit in Iraq. We spent the morning reviewing details. What to say, what not to say, how to act weak without overplaying it, how to watch without being caught watching. Evan absorbed every instruction like the trained operative he had unknowingly become. By noon, I allowed myself to relax slightly. We had time. Rachel and Daniel were not due back until tomorrow evening. Their cruise ship would not dock until morning, and the drive from Galveston to Austin took at least 4 hours. We had the rest of today and most of tomorrow to finalize preparations. That was my mistake, assuming the enemy would follow their schedule. The sound of tires on gravel shattered my false calm at 2 in the afternoon. I was in my bedroom, reviewing the evidence folder one last time when I heard it. The distinctive crunch of a vehicle pulling into my driveway. I froze, then moved to the window. A black SUV sat in front of my house. Rachel's car. My stomach dropped through the floor. They were back, nearly 24 hours early, no warning, no phone call. They had simply appeared, and I was nowhere near ready. For 3 seconds, panic seized me. All my careful planning, all my preparation, suddenly useless. The confrontation I had been building toward was here, now, before I had everything in place. Then training took over, adapt and overcome. The battle had started whether I was ready or not. I moved fast, shoved the evidence folder under my mattress, checked my cardigan pocket for the recorder, pressed the button to start it running. The button camera was already in place from this morning's test run. I ran to Evan's room. He was already at his window, having heard the car. "They are here," I whispered urgently. Early, get ready. His face went pale, but he did not hesitate. In the span of a heartbeat, the alert, talkative boy I had come to know vanished. In his place stood the Evan I had seen for 8 years. Blank expression, empty eyes, a child who saw nothing, heard nothing, understood nothing. Good soldier, I said. Then I hurried back to my room to transform myself. I looked in the mirror. I needed to appear weak, confused, declining. The woman Rachel expected to find after 3 days of double-dose tea. I mussed my hair slightly, let my shoulders slump, practiced a vacant, slightly confused expression, blinked slowly as if having trouble focusing. The hardest part was the eyes. Eyes reveal everything. I had to make mine look dull, foggy. Like the lights were on but nobody was home. The doorbell rang. I shuffled toward the front door, moving slower than necessary. Every step was a performance, every gesture calculated to sell the illusion of deterioration. I opened the door. Rachel stood on my porch, designer sunglasses pushed up on her head, a smile stretching across her face. Behind her, Daniel unloaded luggage from the SUV. They both looked tanned and relaxed, like people returning from a pleasant vacation, not people in the middle of committing murder. "Megan, we are back early." "Surprise!" Her voice was too bright, too cheerful. Her eyes were scanning me, assessing, looking for signs that her poison had worked. I let confusion show on my face. "Rachel, you are back? But I thought—" I let the sentence trail off, as if I had forgotten what I was saying. A common symptom of the drugs she had been feeding me. Rachel's smile widened. "The ship docked early. We decided to come straight home instead of spending another night in Galveston." She stepped forward and hugged me, brief and performative. Her body was tense against mine, coiled with anticipation. "How are you feeling, sis?" "You look tired." I let my voice waver. "Oh, just, have not been sleeping well." I slurred the words slightly, blinked as if the afternoon light was too bright. Rachel pulled back and studied my face. Whatever she saw satisfied her. Her smile became genuine for the first time, the smile of a predator who sees weakness in prey. They came inside. Rachel's eyes swept the room immediately, cataloging everything. The kitchen visible through the archway, the tea box on the counter. "Have you been drinking the tea I made?" she asked, her voice sweet with false concern. "It really helps with sleep." "Oh yes, every day, twice a day, like you said." I watched her reaction carefully while pretending not to watch at all. Relief flickered across her features. Satisfaction. Good. That is very good. Daniel pushed past us carrying suitcases, barely acknowledging me. His eyes scanned the room too, but he was looking for something different. Looking for Evan. "Where is the boy?" I gestured vaguely toward the stairs. Upstairs. In his room. "He has been quiet." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Good. He knows how to behave." Something in his tone made my skin crawl. A threat wrapped in casual words. I filed it away and kept my expression vacant. Rachel walked to the kitchen and picked up the tea box. She opened it, counting the remaining packets. I had removed 8 of them as evidence, disposing of the contents down the toilet. 8 packets for 4 days seemed reasonable. She would not notice anything wrong. She nodded to herself. "You have been consistent. That is important." Then she reached into her oversized purse and pulled out another box, identical to the first. I brought more, a special blend, even better than the last one. My blood chilled. Special blend, stronger dose. They were accelerating the timeline. I swayed slightly on my feet. Actually, I need to sit down. Feeling a bit dizzy. I lowered myself onto the couch with exaggerated care, pressing a hand to my forehead. Rachel and Daniel exchanged a look. Quick, satisfied. They thought I was falling apart faster than expected. Perfect. Let them think that. Daniel went upstairs to check on Evan. I heard his heavy footsteps on the stairs, then the creak of Evan's door opening. My heart pounded, but I kept my face slack and confused. Through the ceiling, I could hear muffled voices. Daniel's voice, sharp and demanding. Then silence. More silence. Daniel testing Evan's muteness, making sure the boy had not broken his 8 years of silence. If Evan slipped now, everything would fall apart. The seconds stretched into an eternity. I sat on the couch, pretending to stare at nothing, while Rachel unpacked in the kitchen and my nephew fought the most important battle of his life. Finally, Daniel's footsteps returned. He came down the stairs looking satisfied. "He is fine." Same as always. Silent. "Of course he is," Rachel said casually. "He knows better." The dismissive cruelty in her voice made me want to scream. But I sat still, played my part, let them believe they had won. Evan appeared at the top of the stairs a few minutes later. His face was blank as a mask. He walked down without looking at me, without acknowledging anyone, and sat in the corner of the living room with a picture book. He turned the pages without reading them. The performance of a mute child, executed flawlessly. He was better at this than any spy I had ever worked with. The rest of the afternoon crawled by. Rachel and Daniel unpacked, made phone calls, talked about their cruise as if nothing was wrong. I sat on the couch and pretended to drift in and out of awareness. Occasionally I would ask a question that had already been answered, or lose track of what someone was saying mid-sentence. Each slip earned me a satisfied glance from Rachel. Evening came. Rachel made dinner while Daniel watched television. Normal family activities, the mask of normalcy covering the rot underneath. I excused myself early, claiming exhaustion. "Headache," I mumbled. "Need to lie down." Rachel's eyes followed me to the bedroom door. "Of course, sis. Get some rest. I will bring you some tea later." I closed the door and positioned myself near the air vent. Old houses have thin walls and shared ductwork. Sound travels. I pressed my ear close and waited. An hour passed. Then 2. Finally, I heard them settle in the living room. The clink of wine glasses. They were celebrating. "How much longer do you think?" Daniel's voice, muffled but audible. "A few more weeks, maybe less." "She is declining faster than I expected." Rachel sounded pleased with herself. "Good. The nursing home is getting impatient. They want the deposit. They will get their deposit. And we will get everything else." My recorder was running in my pocket, capturing every word. "I already have the paperwork," Rachel continued. "Power of attorney application, medical assessment forms. Dr. Morrison owes me a favor. He will sign whatever I need. By next month, Megan will be declared mentally incompetent. We will have control of everything." And then? Rachel's voice went cold. Flat. The voice of a killer. Then we wait. These things happen naturally in nursing homes. Medication errors, falls, neglect. No one investigates when an old, confused woman dies in care. I pressed my hand over my mouth to keep from making a sound. "She still seems too alert sometimes," Daniel said. "Today, when we came in, she looked at me almost like she knew. I noticed. We need to increase the dose. I brought the stronger blend. Start tomorrow. By the end of the week, she will not remember her own name." Silence for a moment. Then Daniel, anxious. "Rachel, I need this done soon. The people I owe, they are not patient. I know. You have told me 100 times. This is happening as fast as it can without raising suspicion. 3 years we waited after your parents. We can wait a few more weeks for her. 3 years we waited after your parents. Confession, plain and clear." My recorder captured it all. I stayed at the vent until they went to bed. Then I lay in the darkness, listening to the house settle, processing everything I had heard. Power of attorney, nursing home, increased dose, murder confession about my parents. They had handed me the case on a silver platter. Around midnight, my door creaked open. I kept my eyes mostly closed, watching through my lashes. A figure approached my bed. Rachel, carrying a steaming cup. She set it on my nightstand and leaned close. "Megan? Are you awake?" I stirred, pretending grogginess. Rachel, I made you some tea, sis, fresh. The new blend. You should drink it all before bed. It will help you sleep." Her voice was soft, sweet, terrifying in its gentleness. "Oh, thank you. So thoughtful." I reached for the cup with a trembling hand, brought it to my lips. The liquid touched my mouth, but I did not swallow, just wet my lips. Good. All of it, Megan. Every drop. Our eyes met in the darkness. For 1 second, masks slipped. Rachel's eyes were cold as ice, calculating, impatient. The eyes of someone who had killed before and was eager to kill again. I had to hide the rage, the knowledge, the readiness. Drink it all. I will check in the morning. She left without another word. The door clicked shut behind her. I waited 60 seconds, then another 60. When I was certain she was gone, I moved. I carried the cup to the bathroom and poured it down the sink, watched the poison swirl away. Then I rinsed the cup but did not wash it, residue for evidence. But as I stood there in the darkness, a realization hit me. Drink it all. I will check in the morning. Rachel would know tomorrow that I had not drunk the tea. An empty cup would tell her the wrong story. She would know something was wrong. The timeline had just accelerated. No more waiting, no more careful preparation. Tomorrow night. I had to spring the trap tomorrow night. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, dark circles under my eyes from sleepless nights. But the eyes themselves were sharp, clear, ready. I had spent 3 days gathering weapons, evidence, allies, legal protection. Tomorrow I would use them. Rachel wanted to serve me poison for breakfast. Instead, I was going to serve her justice for dinner. Dawn came slowly on Monday morning, gray light seeping through the curtains like a reluctant witness to what was about to unfold. I lay perfectly still in my bed, listening to the sounds of the house waking up. Rachel's footsteps in the hallway, the bathroom door opening and closing, water running through pipes. The empty teacup sat on my nightstand where I had placed it after rinsing out the poison. To Rachel, it would look like I had drunk every drop, but the residue I had preserved in a plastic bag told a different story. Evidence, one more piece of the puzzle. I heard her footsteps approach my door. Pause. The handle turned slowly. I closed my eyes and forced my breathing into the deep, steady rhythm of sleep. Heavy sleep. Drugged sleep. The kind of sleep Rachel expected from someone who had consumed a double dose of sedatives. The door opened with a soft creak. I felt her presence in the room, standing over my bed, watching, assessing. I kept my body limp, my face slack, my breathing unchanged. She moved to the nightstand. I heard the soft clink of the cup being lifted. A moment of silence as she checked it. Then a satisfied exhale, almost a laugh. The cup returned to the nightstand. Footsteps retreated. The door closed. She thought her poison was working. She had no idea it was sitting in a plastic bag in my dresser drawer, waiting to be tested. I waited 10 full minutes before moving. Then I slipped out of bed and went through my mental checklist. Today was the day. No more preparation, no more waiting. Tonight the trap would spring shut. But first, I needed to coordinate with my allies, and I needed privacy to do it. I found my opportunity mid-morning. Rachel announced she and Daniel were going grocery shopping, normal errands, the mask of normalcy they wore so well. I watched from the kitchen window as the black SUV backed out of the driveway and disappeared down Pecan Grove Lane. I waited 5 minutes to make sure they were not coming back for something forgotten. Then I moved. The bathroom was the safest place. I locked the door and turned on the shower, letting the water run to mask any sound. Then I pulled out my phone and called Torres. He answered on the second ring. Marcus. They are back. Came early yesterday. I heard his sharp intake of breath. Tell me everything. I gave him the condensed version. The early return. My performance of confusion. The conversation I had overheard through the air vent. The confession about my parents. The plan to increase my dosage. The nursing home scheme. When I finished, Torres was silent for a long moment. Jesus, Meg, they actually said it out loud? About your parents? They thought I was too drugged to hear. They were wrong. Do you have it recorded? Every word. My recorder was running the whole time. Good. That is good. Torres's voice shifted into tactical mode. What is your play? I had been thinking about this all night. Dinner tonight, family dinner. I am going to tell them I want to sign the power of attorney. They will think they have won. Exactly. They will get comfortable, sloppy, and I need you and Linda Chen outside with police, ready to move when I give the signal. What is the signal? I had thought about this carefully. It needed to be something unmistakable, something that would cut through any confusion. When Evan speaks. Silence on the line. Then Torres let out a low whistle. The kid who has not talked in 8 years suddenly opens his mouth. That will definitely get attention. He is ready. He has been ready for a long time. He just needed someone to believe him. Torres was quiet for another moment, processing. I will coordinate with APD. I know a detective there, good guy, owes me a few favors. We will be parked down the street. You text the word now and we come in. And if things go sideways before that, get out. Do not be a hero. Evidence can be rebuilt. You cannot. I appreciate the concern, Marcus. I mean it, Meg. I survived Fallujah. I can survive my sister. His voice softened slightly. That is what worries me. You think you are invincible because you made it through a war zone. But this is different. These people know you. They have studied you. They know your routines and your weaknesses. A pause. Just be careful. Please, I will, I promise. 24 hours, he said. This time tomorrow, it will be over. One way or another. We ended the call. I stayed in the bathroom for another few minutes, the shower still running, and called Linda Chen. She answered with her usual brisk efficiency. Mrs. Sullivan. I was expecting your call. They came back early. We are moving tonight. Tonight? That is faster than we discussed. I do not have a choice. They are increasing the dosage. By the end of the week, they expect me to be incapacitated. I cannot wait that long. Linda absorbed this without comment. What do you need from me? Legal backup. Be ready to file emergency guardianship papers for Evan the moment charges are brought, and I need confirmation that my recordings will be admissible. Texas is one-party consent. You were part of every conversation you recorded. They are clean, no entrapment concerns. Good. Linda's voice became more serious. Listen to me carefully. During dinner, do not push too hard. Ask questions that seem confused, innocent. Make them explain their plans. The more they say thinking you are incompetent, the more they incriminate themselves. And when Evan speaks, let that be the trigger. Their reaction will tell everything. Guilty people do not react well to unexpected revelations. She paused. If they become violent or try to run, do not engage. Let them go. We have enough evidence already. Police can pick them up later. Your safety and the boys' safety come first. Understood. Good luck tonight, Mrs. Sullivan. I will be waiting for your call. I ended the call and turned off the shower. My reflection stared back at me from the foggy mirror. Tired eyes. Tense jaw. The face of a soldier preparing for battle. Tonight. Everything ended tonight. Finding a private moment with Evan was harder. Rachel and Daniel had returned from their shopping trip, and the house felt crowded with their presence. They watched me constantly, looking for signs of deterioration. I gave them what they wanted, shuffling steps. Confused expressions, sentences that trailed off into nothing. My opportunity came in the late afternoon. Rachel went to take a shower. Daniel settled in front of the television with a beer. I caught Evan's eye and tilted my head toward the stairs. He understood instantly. 5 minutes later, we were both in his room with the door closed. I sat beside him on the bed and spoke quietly. Tonight. We end this tonight. His blue eyes were steady. How? I am going to invite them to a family dinner. I am going to tell them I want to sign the power of attorney papers. They will think they have won. And then? And then, at exactly the right moment, you are going to speak. His breath caught, but he did not look away. When I give you the signal, when I say I think Evan has something to say, that is when you talk. You tell them everything. The threats, what you heard, the tea, everything. Evan was quiet for a long moment. His hands twisted together in his lap. the first sign of nervousness I had seen from him since Thursday. What if they do not believe me? I took his hands in mine. They will believe you. Because you have proof. Because I have recordings. Because the police will be outside waiting for my signal. His eyes widened. Police? Torres is coordinating with Austin PD. Linda Chen will be there with legal documents. The moment you speak, the moment they react, we text one word and they come in. Evan absorbed this. His small frame seemed to grow steadier as the plan became real. Can you do this? I asked. Can you speak up when the time comes? He looked at me with eyes that had seen too much, known too much, carried too much for far too long. I have been waiting my whole life to tell them, he said. To tell someone, anyone. I have practiced what I would say 1,000 times in my head. I just never had anyone who would listen. I am listening now. And tonight, everyone will listen. Evan nodded slowly. Then a question crossed his face. What happens after? After I talk? After the police come? I squeezed his hands tighter. Your mom and dad are going to go away for a long time. You might never see them again. I expected fear, grief, some flicker of loss for the parents he was about to condemn. Instead, I saw relief. They were never really my parents, he said quietly. Not in the ways that matter. Real parents do not threaten their children into silence. Real parents do not plan to murder people for money. He looked at me with something new in his eyes. Trust. Hope. You are more my family than they ever were. My throat tightened. After tonight, you will stay with me. I am going to petition for guardianship. You will never have to pretend to be mute again. You will never have to be afraid again. A tear slipped down his cheek. The first tear I had seen from him since Thursday. I know, he whispered. That is why I told you about the tea. Because I knew you would fight for me. Because you are my real family. I pulled him into a hug. Brief, fierce, full of promises I intended to keep. Tonight you take back your voice, no more hiding. When you speak, speak loud and clear. Let them hear every word. He pulled back and wiped his eyes. Okay, I am ready. Good, because it is almost time. I left his room and went downstairs to set the final piece in motion. Rachel was in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone. Daniel was still watching television, empty beer bottle beside him, normal evening activities. The mask of normalcy they wore so well. I shuffled into the kitchen, making sure to move slowly, to seem uncertain. Rachel, I said, letting my voice waver, can I talk to you about something? She looked up, her expression shifting to false concern. Of course, sis. What is it? I have been thinking, about everything you said, about needing help. Her eyes sharpened. Interest beneath the mask, those papers you mentioned, the power of something. Power of attorney? Yes, that. Maybe I should sign them. Rachel set her phone down. Daniel appeared in the kitchen doorway, suddenly attentive. That is very wise, Megan. Very responsible. Rachel's voice dripped with sweetness. We only want what is best for you. Daniel stepped forward. We could do that tonight. I have the papers right here. Tonight? I let confusion show on my face. But should we not celebrate first? A family dinner, like old times. Rachel and Daniel exchanged a glance, triumph barely concealed. That is a lovely idea, Rachel said. A family dinner. We will cook together, just like when we were kids, and Evan should join us. I forced a smile. He has been so quiet. I would like him at the table. Daniel stiffened slightly, but Rachel nodded. Of course. Family dinner. Everyone together. Tonight at 7, I said. Tonight at 7. The trap was set. I spent the next hour in my room checking equipment one final time. Recorder with fresh batteries, button camera in position, backup device hidden in the dining room, tucked behind a family photo where no one would notice. At 6:30, I texted Torres. Dinner at 7. Signal will be, I think Evan has something to say. When you hear commotion or if you do not hear from me by 8, Come in." His reply came seconds later, parked 2 houses down, Linda with me, APD detective standing by. "We have got you, Meg. You are not alone." I put the phone away and looked in the mirror one last time. Dark circles under my eyes. Hair slightly disheveled, the appearance of a woman in decline. But behind the mask, something else, something sharp, something ready. The eyes were the hardest to disguise. I had to keep them dull, unfocused, when everything inside me was screaming to fight. Not yet, soon, but not yet. At 6:55, I knocked on Evan's door. He opened immediately, dressed, alert, ready. "It is time, buddy." He straightened his small shoulders, took a deep breath. "Are you ready, soldier?" He looked up at me with those ancient blue eyes, eyes that had seen too much, survived too much, hidden too much. "I have been ready for 8 years, Aunt Megan." A pause. "Let us finish this." We walked together toward the stairs. Below us, Rachel and Daniel were setting the table. The clink of plates, the murmur of conversation, the smell of dinner cooking. A family dinner. The last family dinner this family would ever have. We descended the stairs side by side, walking into battle, walking toward justice, walking toward the end of everything Rachel thought she had built. The dining room looked almost beautiful in the candlelight. Rachel had set the table with care, white plates on placemats, cloth napkins folded into triangles, 2 tall candles flickering in the center. A family dinner, the kind we used to have before everything went wrong, before I learned that family could be the most dangerous word in the English language. I took my seat at the head of the table, my house, my seat. Rachel sat to my right, Daniel to my left. Evan slipped into the chair across from me, his eyes down, his expression blank. The mute child everyone expected him to be. The 4 of us gathered around a table like a family. Except 2 of us were predators, and 2 of us were hunters pretending to be prey. Rachel had prepared roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. Comfort food. The kind of meal that said everything is normal, everything is fine. We are just a family sharing dinner together. Nothing was normal, nothing was fine. And by the end of this meal, this family would be destroyed forever. I reached for my water glass, letting my hand tremble. Blinked slowly, as if focusing required effort. "This chicken looks good," I said, deliberately pausing mid-sentence as if searching for words. "Looks really good." Rachel smiled, warm and caring and completely false. "I am so glad you think so, sis. I made it just the way Mom used to." The mention of our mother sent a spike of rage through my chest, but I kept my face slack, confused. The woman they expected me to be. Daniel barely touched his food, his knee bounced under the table, impatient. He wanted this over with. He wanted the papers signed. He wanted his gambling debts paid. Rachel filled the silence with chatter about the cruise, the beaches in Cozumel, the sunsets over the Caribbean, the romantic dinners she and Daniel had shared. "You should travel more, Megan. While you still can. While you still can. The threat hidden in plain sight." I nodded vaguely, as if I had not caught the meaning. Evan ate mechanically, eyes on his plate. Rachel ignored him completely. Daniel glanced at him once, a warning look, then returned his attention to me. The dinner plates were cleared. Rachel brought out coffee. I pretended to sip mine, letting most of it dribble back into the cup, selling the image of declining motor control. Then Daniel made his move. He reached down beside his chair and produced a manila folder, set it on the table with careful precision. "So, Megan, you mentioned wanting to discuss the power of attorney." His voice was smooth, professional, the real estate agent closing a deal. I let confusion flicker across my face. The power of what? Power of attorney. Rachel leaned forward, her voice patient and condescending. "Remember? We talked about it. Papers that let us help you manage things, pay your bills, handle the house." "Oh." I blinked slowly. "Right. Yes." Daniel opened the folder and spread the documents across the table. Pages of legal text. My name printed throughout. Power of attorney, durable and financial, healthcare directive, Asset transfer authorization. Everything they needed to take control of my life. My money. My future. I reached for the papers with a trembling hand, squinted at the text as if struggling to read. "There are so many words," I murmured. "I cannot quite follow all this." "You do not need to read it all," Rachel said quickly. "We have had lawyers look at it. It just says we can help you manage things. You will not have to worry about anything anymore." Daniel pushed a pen toward me. "Just sign at the tabs. We will take care of the rest." His mask was slipping, the impatience showing through. He needed this done. His creditors would not wait much longer. I picked up the pen, let it hover over the first signature line. Then I set it down. "I want to understand first, before I sign anything." Rachel's smile tightened. "It is complicated, Megan. That is why you need us." Daniel leaned forward, his voice hardening. "Just sign. We can explain later." "No." The word came out sharper than I intended. I softened it immediately. I just have some questions. About the tea." Rachel went still. Daniel stopped breathing. "The tea?" I nodded slowly, keeping my voice uncertain. "It has been making me feel strange, tired, forgetting things. Is that supposed to happen?" Rachel recovered quickly. "It is herbal, Megan. Very mild. Just helps you relax." "But I feel worse than before. Much worse, like my mind is slipping." I looked at her with what I hoped appeared to be genuine confusion. "Sometimes I cannot remember what day it is, or where I put things." "That is not normal, is it?" Daniel cut in, his voice dismissive. "You are getting older, Megan. It happens. That is why you need us. To help you." But the doctor said something. Both of them froze. "What doctor?" Rachel's voice was carefully controlled. "When did you see a doctor?" I let my forehead wrinkle as if trying to remember. "I do not know. Was it Friday? He said there were drugs in my blood. Said the levels were dangerous." Silence crashed over the table, heavy, loaded. Rachel and Daniel stared at each other, the first real crack appearing in their confidence. "You must be mistaken," Rachel said finally. "You have been so confused lately. Maybe you dreamed it. Maybe." I let doubt creep into my voice, but it seemed so real. "Let us focus on the paperwork." Rachel's tone was brittle now. "Then we can discuss doctors." Daniel was done pretending. "Rachel, this is taking too long. Just have her sign." He turned to me, all pretense of warmth gone. "Sign the papers. Now. We will sort out the rest later." His desperation was showing, the gambling debts, the creditors, the deadline he could not miss. I looked at the pen, then at Daniel, then at Rachel, then across the table at Evan. His eyes met mine, steady, ready, waiting. This was the moment. 8 years of silence about to end. "Before I sign anything," I said slowly, "I think Evan has something to say." Rachel laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "Evan? He cannot say anything. He is mute." Daniel scowled. "Do not be ridiculous. Sign the papers." But I was not looking at them anymore. I was looking at Evan. And Evan was rising from his chair. The room went absolutely still. Evan lifted his head, looked directly at his mother, and spoke. "I am not mute." Rachel's face drained of color, white as bone, white as death. I never was. His voice was rough from years of disuse, but every word was clear as crystal. "I can speak. I have always been able to speak. I just was not allowed to." Daniel's mouth fell open. No sound came out. Rachel tried to recover. "Evan, sweetie, you are confused. I am not confused." Evan's voice grew stronger. "You threatened me, Dad. When I was 3 years old. You said you would send me to a special hospital where I would never come back." Daniel sputtered. "That is not true. I never said that. You did. You came into my room after the party. You locked the door. You told me if I ever spoke again, I would disappear." Evan turned to Rachel. "And you, Mom. You told me good boys stay quiet. You told me if I was not a good boy, you could not keep me anymore." His voice cracked but did not break. "So I stopped talking. for 8 years. Because I was afraid of my own parents. Rachel stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. He is lying. He has been coached. Megan, you cannot believe this. But Evan was not finished. I heard you talking about the tea, about making Aunt Megan confused. I heard you planning to put her in a nursing home, to take her house and her money. His eyes locked onto his mother's. And I heard you talking about Grandma and Grandpa, about how it worked the first time, about how the tea was perfect. Rachel's face contorted. Horror, rage, desperation. I know what you did. I know what you are doing. And now Aunt Megan knows too. Rachel lunged toward Evan. You little brat! You have ruined everything. Do you know what you have done? I was on my feet instantly, moving between them. Evan stepped back but did not run, did not cower. He had spent 8 years being afraid. He was done. I dropped the mask. No more trembling hands, no more confused expression, no more slurred words. My voice came out cold, steady, the voice of a soldier. He is not lying, Rachel, and neither am I. I straightened to my full height, met her eyes without flinching. I stopped drinking your tea days ago. I have been recording every word you said. I have blood tests, medical records, witnesses, a lawyer. Rachel staggered backward as if I had struck her. Your plan failed, and now you are going to pay for everything you have done. I pulled out my phone, typed 3 letters. NOW, hit send. Daniel bolted from his chair. We need to go, now, before the police. He did not make it 3 steps. The front door crashed open. Torres was first through, badge visible, weapon drawn. Austin PD. Nobody move. 2 uniformed officers followed him in, then Linda Chen, clutching a folder of legal documents. Torres's eyes found mine across the chaos. You okay? I nodded. Got everything on tape. Daniel tried to run toward the back door. An officer tackled him before he made it to the kitchen. His face hit the hardwood floor with a satisfying thud. Handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Daniel Morrison, you are under arrest for attempted murder, elder abuse, and conspiracy. Daniel's voice was muffled against the floor. I want a lawyer! I want a lawyer! Rachel did not run. She stood frozen in the dining room, tears streaming down her face. Whether from grief or rage or fear, I could not tell. An officer approached her carefully. Rachel Morrison, you are under arrest. She did not resist as he turned her around, did not struggle as the handcuffs closed around her wrists. But her eyes found mine, and in them I saw something that chilled me to the bone. Not remorse, not defeat, hatred. This is not over, she hissed. You will regret this, Megan. You will regret destroying your own family. I watched as the officer read her rights, watched as he guided her toward the front door, watched as the woman I had raised, the sister I had loved, walked out of my life in handcuffs. I did not destroy this family, Rachel. You did, years ago. They led her out into the night. Red and blue lights flashed across the front lawn. Neighbors had gathered on their porches, watching the spectacle. Mrs. Patterson stood among them, her hand pressed to her heart. Daniel followed in the second squad car, still shouting about lawyers and rights, and how this was all a mistake. Then they were gone. The house fell silent. The candles still flickered on the dining table. The dinner Rachel had made grew cold on the counter. The power of attorney papers lay scattered across the tablecloth, unsigned, worthless. Torres appeared beside me. You did it, Meg. We got them. I nodded, but I could not speak. The adrenaline was fading, and in its place came something I had not expected. Emptiness. I had spent so many days preparing for this moment, planning, gathering evidence, building the trap. And now that it was sprung, I did not know what to feel. Relief? Yes. They could not hurt me anymore. Triumph? Maybe. Justice had been served. But also grief. For the sister I thought I had. For the family that had been a lie, for 35 years of love that turned out to be one-sided. A small hand slipped into mine. Evan stood beside me, looking up at my face. His eyes were wet, but his expression was calm, peaceful even. Is it really over? I looked down at this boy. This brave, impossible boy who had saved my life. The hard part is over. They cannot hurt us anymore, but there is still the trial, the testimony. It will not be easy. Evan nodded slowly. I know, but I can talk now. I can tell the truth. I am not afraid anymore. I knelt down so we were eye to eye. You were the bravest person I have ever known, Evan. Braver than soldiers I served with. Braver than anyone I have met in 45 years of living. His eyes filled with tears. But these were not tears of fear or pain. From now on, you never have to hide again. You never have to be silent again. This is your home now, and I will protect you, always. Evan threw his arms around me. I held him tight. This child who had been through so much, who had carried burdens no one should ever have to carry, who had found his voice at exactly the right moment. I know, Aunt Megan. That is why I told you about the tea. He pulled back and looked at me with those ancient blue eyes. Because I knew you would fight for me. Behind us, the dining room sat empty. The candles had burned down to stubs, the remnants of a family dinner that became a battlefield. But ahead of us, through the open front door, I could see the night sky, stars appearing one by one, the darkness retreating. We had won the battle. The war was not over yet. Trial, testimony, healing, all of it still to come. But for the first time in years, I was not facing it alone, and neither was Evan. 3 months had passed since the night everything changed. 91 days of depositions and evidence reviews and sleepless nights. 91 days of watching Evan learn to speak freely, to laugh out loud, to be a child instead of a ghost. 91 days of healing that felt like both an eternity and the blink of an eye. Now I stood outside the Travis County Courthouse in downtown Austin, February wind cutting through my coat, watching my breath form clouds in the cold morning air. The building loomed before us, all limestone and columns and the weight of justice waiting inside. Evan stood beside me in the suit Linda Chen had helped him pick out. Navy blue, white shirt, red tie. He looked older than 8. He looked like someone who had already lived several lifetimes. Are you ready? I asked. He nodded slowly. I have been ready for a long time. We climbed the courthouse steps together. The past 3 months had been a whirlwind. Rachel and Daniel were held without bail from the beginning, deemed flight risks given the severity of the charges. The preliminary hearings had been brutal, evidence presented in clinical detail, my blood test results, the recordings from my pocket and the hidden device, Evan's testimony given via video link so he would not have to face his parents directly. The media had latched onto the story with ferocious interest. Mute child breaks. 8 years of silence to save aunt from poisoning. The headlines ran for weeks. News vans camped outside my house until Torres convinced them to leave. Evan's face was blurred in every photo and video at my insistence. He had been through enough without becoming a public spectacle. The world wanted to make him a hero. I just wanted to keep him safe. Inside the courthouse, we passed through security and made our way to courtroom 4. The hallway was crowded with reporters, lawyers, curious spectators. Linda Chen met us at the door, her expression calm and professional. The judge is ready. They are bringing in the defendants now. I took a deep breath and pushed through the doors. The courtroom was packed, every seat in the gallery filled. I spotted Mrs. Patterson near the front, saving seats for us. Torres stood near the back, arms crossed, watching everything with the vigilance of a soldier on guard duty. My people, my army, small but loyal. We took our seats. I kept my eyes forward, but I could feel the weight of attention from across the room. The defense table, 2 figures in orange jumpsuits. I made myself look. Rachel sat with her shoulders hunched, her once perfect hair limp and unwashed. 3 months in county jail had stripped away all the polish. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. The confident woman who had handed me poisoned tea was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. Daniel sat beside her, haggard and unshaven. His eyes darted around the courtroom, never settling on anything for long. The charming real estate agent had vanished. In his place was a desperate man who had bet everything on a losing hand. Neither of them looked at me. Rachel stared at the table. Daniel stared at nothing. I had loved that woman once, sacrificed everything for her. And now she could not even meet my eyes. I expected to feel satisfaction, triumph, vindication. Instead, I felt hollow, sad, a strange grief for the sister Rachel could have been, for the family that had been built on lies. She was never really my sister, but for 35 years I believed she was. That belief had been real. Its death deserved mourning. Evan's small hand found mine. He had seen them too. His parents for the first time since the arrest. "They look small now," he whispered. "They are small. They always were. We just could not see it." "All rise." The courtroom stood as Judge Eleanor Blackwood entered, silver-haired and stern, with a reputation for fairness and zero tolerance for nonsense. She had presided over the trial with precision, cutting through defense objections and keeping proceedings on track. She took her seat. The courtroom held its breath. In the matter of the state of Texas versus Rachel Morrison and Daniel Morrison, the judge began, her voice carrying across the silent room. "The jury has reached a verdict. The charges were read aloud. Count 1, attempted murder in the first degree against Megan Sullivan. Count 2, elder abuse causing bodily harm. Count 3, child endangerment through psychological abuse of a minor. Count 4, conspiracy to commit fraud. 4 counts, 4 chances for justice or failure." The jury foreman stood, a middle-aged man in a gray suit, his face carefully neutral. "On count 1, attempted murder in the first degree, we find the defendants guilty." A gasp rippled through the gallery. Rachel's head dropped. Daniel did not move. "On count 2, elder abuse causing bodily harm, guilty. On count 3, child endangerment, guilty. On count 4, conspiracy to commit fraud, guilty. Guilty on all counts." I exhaled. I had not realized I was holding my breath. Beside me, Evan squeezed my hand tighter. His face was pale but composed. He had waited 8 years for someone to believe him. Now 12 strangers had confirmed what he always knew. His parents were monsters, and monsters faced consequences. Rachel finally looked up. Her eyes found mine across the courtroom, wet but hard, not remorse, resentment. Even in defeat, she blamed everyone but herself. She mouthed something. I could not read it. Did not want to. Daniel broke. Sobs shook his shoulders as he buried his face in his hands. This was not supposed to happen. This was not how it was supposed to end. The gambler who had bet my life on a long shot finally understood. The house always wins. Evan watched his father cry with no expression on his face. "I thought I would feel happy," he said quietly. "I just feel tired." "That is okay, buddy. Justice is not supposed to feel like a party. It is supposed to feel like truth." The sentencing hearing came 1 week later. Same courtroom, same players, same weight of anticipation pressing down on everyone present. The prosecution had presented victim impact statements. My words about 35 years of trust destroyed. Medical testimony about the drug levels in my blood. Dr. Mitchell's assessment of Evan's trauma from 8 years of enforced silence. Dr. Patel took the stand and explained in clinical detail how close I had come to death. "Another few weeks at those dosage levels," she said. "Potentially fatal, certainly irreversible cognitive damage." The defense tried everything, claimed Rachel had mental health issues that impaired her judgment, claimed Daniel was merely following his wife's lead, claimed the recordings were taken out of context. None of it worked. Judge Blackwood's face remained impassive throughout. But when she delivered her sentencing statement, there was steel in her voice. The defendants in this case committed crimes of extraordinary cruelty. They poisoned a family member who trusted them completely. They psychologically tortured a child into 8 years of silence. They allegedly murdered 2 elderly victims and escaped justice for 3 years. She paused, letting the words settle. The court must send a clear message. Predatory behavior against vulnerable family members will not be tolerated in this state, will not be excused, will not be minimized. Rachel stood for sentencing. Her lawyer beside her, her orange jumpsuit a stark contrast to the designer clothes she used to wear. Rachel Morrison, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in state prison. 15 years for attempted murder, 5 years for elder abuse, 5 years for child endangerment. To be served consecutively. You will be eligible for parole in 15 years. Rachel did not react. Her face was empty, hollow, as if she had already left her body behind. Additionally, you face separate charges for the suspected murders of Thomas and Margaret Sullivan. Those proceedings will follow. Daniel's sentencing came next. Daniel Morrison, you are hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison. 10 years for conspiracy to commit murder, 5 years for elder abuse and child endangerment, served consecutively. Parole eligibility in 8 years. Daniel sobbed again. I did not mean for any of this. I just needed the money. Judge Blackwood's response was ice cold. Your financial desperation does not excuse attempted murder, Mr. Morrison. Your debts do not justify poisoning an innocent woman or terrorizing a child. You will have 15 years to reflect on that distinction. The bailiffs moved forward, handcuffs secured. Time to go. Rachel was led out first. She passed the gallery where I sat, stopped for just a moment. The guards tensed. You took everything from me, she whispered. I met her eyes without flinching. No, you threw it all away yourself. She was pulled forward, through the side door. Gone. Daniel followed. He did not look up, just shuffled away, still crying, still broken. And just like that, 2 people who had controlled my life walked out of it forever. The guardianship hearing took place in a different courtroom. Family court, smaller, warmer, a judge who specialized in children's welfare. Just me, Evan, Linda Chen, and a court-appointed advocate for Evan. No reporters, no spectators. This was not about punishment, this was about beginning. Linda presented our case efficiently. Rachel incarcerated for 25 years minimum. Daniel surrendered parental rights as part of his plea agreement. No other living relatives willing or able to take custody. Megan Sullivan, she concluded. Stable income, suitable home, established relationship with the child extending back to his birth. The judge reviewed the paperwork. Then she looked at Evan. Young man, I would like to hear from you directly. Do you want to live with your aunt? Evan stood up straight. His voice was clear and strong. She is not my aunt by blood. But she is my family by choice. She fought for me when no one else would. She believed me when I told the truth. I want to live with her. I want to be a Sullivan. My eyes stung. I blinked hard to keep the tears from falling. The judge smiled. A rare expression in these proceedings. In all my years on this bench, I have rarely seen such a clear case. Megan Sullivan is hereby granted full legal guardianship of Evan Morrison. She made a note on the paperwork. Additionally, at the child's request and with the guardian's consent, I authorize the legal name change. Evan Morrison is now Evan Sullivan. Evan looked at me. A grin spread across his face. Real, full, the grin of a child who finally felt safe. I am Evan Sullivan now. Yes, you are. Welcome to the family, soldier. We walked out of the courthouse into the February afternoon, cold but bright. The sky a pale winter blue. Torres was waiting on the steps. Got news on your parents' case. I braced myself. Evan stood close beside me. DA is moving forward with murder charges. Both of them. Medical examiner officially reclassified both deaths as homicides. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through notes. Rachel's pharmacy records, the potassium purchases, combined with Evan's testimony about what he heard. It is enough for indictment. Grand jury convenes next month. They could each face another 25 to life. I nodded slowly. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Something deeper, something like peace. Mom and Dad would finally have justice, 3 years late, but justice nonetheless. They died thinking their daughters loved them, I said quietly. At least one of us did. Torres put a hand on my shoulder. You did it, Meg. You and this kid. Your parents would be proud. I wish they could have met the real Evan, the one who talks. They would have loved him. Torres nodded toward Evan. He is a Sullivan now. That is enough. Mrs. Patterson appeared at the bottom of the steps, waving. She had a car waiting to take us home. Home. The word meant something different now. Something better. Evan tugged my hand. Aunt Megan? What happens now? I looked down at him. This boy who had saved my life, who had endured 8 years of silence, who had found the courage to speak when it mattered most. Now we go home. We eat dinner. We watch a movie. We do homework. We do all the normal things we could not do before. Evan considered this. That sounds nice. Really nice. It will be, I promise. We descended the courthouse steps together. The winter sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Behind us, the courthouse held the echoes of everything that had happened. The trials, the verdicts, the justice served. Ahead of us, a car waited to take us home. Mrs. Patterson smiled and waved again. I looked at Evan. He was humming softly, a song from the radio, something he could not do when he was pretending to be mute. Such a small thing, humming. But it represented everything: freedom, voice, life without fear. We climbed into the car. Mrs. Patterson fussed over Evan, asking if he was warm enough, if he was hungry, if he needed anything. He answered every question, chattering about the courtroom, the judge, the way Daniel had cried. 3 months ago, this boy had not spoken a word in 8 years. Now he would not stop talking, and I would never, ever take that for granted. 6 months had passed since the trial ended, 6 months of healing and rebuilding and learning what normal felt like. I stood on my back porch on an August morning, coffee in hand, watching the Texas sun rise over the oak trees. The heat was already building at 8 in the morning, promising another scorching summer day. But I did not mind. After everything that had happened, even the brutal Austin heat felt like a gift. The same porch where I had once stood in fear. The same backyard where my mother had grown roses. The same house that Rachel had tried to steal from me. But everything felt different now, lighter, cleaner, as if the ghosts of what happened here had finally faded away. Rachel's tea box was long gone, evidence locker first, then destroyed after the trial concluded. In its place on my kitchen counter sat a fruit bowl that Evan had picked out at the farmer's market. Bright red apples and yellow bananas. Colors of life instead of poison. New photos covered the walls now. Me and Evan at the Austin Zoo, standing in front of the elephant exhibit. Evan at his school play, dressed as a tree, grinning so wide his face might split. The two of us at Mrs. Patterson's 79th birthday party, frosting on our noses from a cake fight that got out of hand. New memories. Real memories. The kind that heal instead of hurt. From inside the house I could hear Evan talking, not to anyone in particular, just to himself, practicing a presentation for his summer reading program. His voice carried through the open window, confident and clear. He talked constantly now, narrating video games, singing in the shower, reading aloud from whatever book had captured his attention that week. Every word was a victory. Every sentence was a reclamation of what had been stolen from him. A year ago, I was being slowly poisoned by someone I loved. Now I was watching the sunrise with a full heart and a clear mind. Survival is not just about not dying. It is about learning to live again. Evan had transformed in ways I could barely comprehend. He finished 3rd grade in May, having started late but caught up impossibly fast. His teachers were amazed. Reading at a 6th grade level, they told me. vocabulary that would impress a high schooler. I was not surprised. He had been teaching himself for years while everyone around him assumed he understood nothing. Honor roll, science fair winner with a project about ocean pollution. 3 real friends, the first he had ever had. Boys from his class who came over for video games and stayed for dinner and treated him like any other kid. Because he was like any other kid now. Finally. The therapy had helped. Weekly sessions with Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. The early months were hard. Nightmares that woke him screaming, flinching at loud voices. Fear of abandonment that made him check 3 times every night that I was still in the house. But slowly, session by session, week by week, the wounds began to close. Dr. Mitchell called him remarkably resilient. Most children with his history struggle for years, she told me. Evan is already thriving. He still had bad days, moments when the old fear crept back, times when he went quiet and I could see him retreating into the silence that had protected him for so long. But those moments were getting rarer. The boy who emerged from them was stronger each time. Last month he told me his career goal. We were eating dinner, just the 2 of us, when he set down his fork and looked at me with those serious blue eyes. "I want to be a lawyer," he said, "a child advocate lawyer. I want to help kids who cannot speak for themselves, like I could not." My heart swelled so much I thought it might burst. He was not defined by his trauma. He was transformed by it. The silent boy who saved my life wanted to spend his life saving others. The subplots of our nightmare had all found their endings. Torres called regularly with updates on my parents' case. The grand jury had indicted Rachel and Daniel for first-degree murder. Both of them. The trial was scheduled for October. Rachel's pharmacy records from before my parents died showed the same pattern as mine. Potassium supplements purchased from multiple stores under different names. The medical examiner had officially reclassified both deaths as homicides. Mom and Dad would have their day in court. 3 years late, but justice was coming. They died thinking both their daughters loved them. At least one of us did. Mrs. Patterson had become family in everything but name. Sunday dinners at her house were tradition now. She told Evan stories about my mother, about the neighborhood 40 years ago, about a world that existed before everything went wrong. Last week she gave Evan a photo album. Pictures of my parents when they were young, my mother in her wedding dress, my father holding me as a baby, a family that had been real even if it ended in tragedy. "Your grandparents were wonderful people," she told him, "and they would have loved you so much." Evan kept the album on his nightstand. Sometimes I heard him talking to the photos at night, telling them about his day, about school, about the life he was finally getting to live. Torres visited monthly now. He brought updates on cases he was working, but mostly he just checked in. Brothers in arms do not disappear when the battle ends. Linda Chen had become our family attorney. She helped set up a trust fund for Evan, funded by the inheritance from my parents that was finally going to someone who deserved it. I had built a support network without realizing it. People who showed up when it mattered. People who stayed when the crisis passed. As for Rachel, I received 1 letter from prison. I did not open it. Some doors are meant to stay closed. Her appeal was denied. 25 years stood. Daniel was serving his time quietly. No contact attempted. They were ghosts now. Memories I was learning to release. On a Saturday in late August, Evan and I drove out to Lake Travis. 30 minutes from Austin, blue water sparkling under the summer sun. We rented a small boat and dropped anchor in a quiet cove, fishing lines dangling over the side. This had become our thing. Fishing. Something neither of us had done before everything happened. We learned together, failed together, laughed at our failures together. Evan chattered the whole time. "Did you know that bass can live up to 20 years? That is older than me times 2, and they have really good hearing. That is why we have to be quiet." Well, relatively quiet. He grinned. He knew he was not quiet. Did not care. Relative quiet from Evan meant only talking every 30 seconds instead of every 5. Then he went still, looked out at the water. His face grew serious. "Aunt Megan?" Can I ask you something? Always, buddy. What is on your mind? Do you ever miss her? My mom, I mean. Rachel. I considered the question carefully. He deserved honesty, not comfort. I miss who I thought she was, the sister I believed I had. But that person was not real, Evan. The real Rachel was someone who could hurt people she claimed to love. I do not miss that person. I am still angry at that person. I paused, choosing my next words with care. But I am learning to let the anger go, not for her sake, for mine, and for yours. Evan nodded slowly. I do not miss her. Is that bad? No, buddy, it is honest, and honest is always better than pretending. His fishing line jerked. His eyes went wide. I got something. We worked together to reel it in. A decent-sized bass broke the surface, flopping and fighting. Evan whooped with pure, unburdened joy, the sound of a child who had finally been allowed to be a child. We caught dinner, he announced proudly. We sure did, soldier. We sure did. That evening back home, the fish cleaned and cooked and eaten with ceremony, Evan settled into his summer reading while I sat on the back porch. The same porch as always, full circle. Stars were appearing one by one. Crickets sang their summer songs. Peace, real peace. The kind I had not felt in years. I thought about everything that had happened. 25 years in the army, trained to recognize threats, to identify enemies. But I missed the enemy in my own family, for 35 years. How? Because love is blind, trust is deaf. Family is the perfect disguise for betrayal. If I could go back, what would I do differently? I would listen to my instincts, that sixth sense that knew something was wrong. I would watch behaviors, not just hear words. Actions reveal truth. I would ask questions when things did not add up. Why this tea? Why now? Why so insistent? Most of all, I would listen to the children. Evan saved my life because he was watching when no one else was. He was silent, but he saw everything. He remembered everything. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They are often paying the closest attention. Family is not blood. It is not DNA. It is not shared parents or childhood homes. Family is who shows up when you are broken, who fights for you when you cannot fight for yourself. Family is choice and courage and truth. Evan and I chose each other. That choice is stronger than any bloodline. I am sharing this story because it is not just mine. It belongs to every grandparent being slowly isolated by family members who want their money, every elderly person whose confusion might actually be poison, every child who cannot speak their truth because they are too afraid, every person who senses something wrong but stays silent because it seems crazy. If you feel like something is not right in your family, investigate. If an elderly parent suddenly declines without explanation, ask questions. If a child goes silent when they used to speak, pay attention. Do not wait for proof to fall into your lap. Do not assume the people closest to you could never hurt you. Do not ignore the voice in your head that whispers, something is wrong. Thank God Evan found the courage to speak. Thank God I had enough clarity left to listen. I am not a religious woman. But I believe something was watching over us. Something that gave an 8-year-old boy the strength to break 8 years of silence. Something that kept me alive just long enough to hear the truth. Call it God, call it fate. Call it the universe. Something wanted justice, and we delivered it. The lesson Evan and I learned is simple. Family is not about DNA. It is about who stands beside you when the battle comes. Blood may connect you by accident, but love and courage connect you by choice. We fought for each other. That made us unbreakable. If you are raising a grandchild, know that you are not alone. If you are protecting an aging parent, stay vigilant. If you are a child trapped in silence, find your voice. Someone will listen. If you are facing betrayal from someone you trusted, you can survive. I am proof. So I have to ask you. Have you ever suspected something was wrong but stayed silent? Have you ever trusted someone who turned out to be dangerous? What would you have done in my situation? Please drop a comment below, share your thoughts, Share your stories. Because sometimes the most important battles are fought inside our own homes. And sometimes hearing someone else's story gives us the courage to face our own. If this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button. There are more stories like ours. Stories of courage, betrayal, and justice. Stories that might save a life. Maybe even yours. And please, share this video with someone who needs to hear it. A friend, a parent, a neighbor. Anyone who might be facing their own silent battle. You never know whose life you might save just by sharing. I am Megan Sullivan. This is my nephew, Evan Sullivan. We survived because we had each other. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. Thank you for staying until the end. Stay vigilant. Stay strong. Trust your instincts. And never ever underestimate the power of the truth. Because the truth, spoken or silent, always finds a way out. This story is fictionalized for dramatic effect.